Getting crashes on I-65 right now, Metro Center. We've got northbound block near Rosa Parks Boulevard, and then police on scene of another 65 crash. This is going to be southbound at Concord Road. The left lane is blocked there in Brentwood. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Here we are. Here we go. It is a Thursday edition of the Matt Murphy Radio Show, our first one for 2025. Look, I put 2024 on my sheet here that I do every day. That's one day of many.
Well, old habits die hard, Brother Murphy.
2024 is in bed, baby. It is in bed. We put a wrap on that thing, put a little bow on it, and it's done. Episode 720 of our visits together on Super Talk 99.7 WTN starts right now. I'm trying to do it sans microphone condom. And y'all tell me if I sound okay doing it this way. Because the little mic koozie, I call it a mic. Look at that thing. I mean, it's just, if you're watching on Talk TV, that's just awful. It's all rough. Ripped up and it looks a little worse for wear. I was watching Dan Mandis in Nashville's Morning News this morning, and I noticed how bad it looked. And I thought, man, I need to stop using that thing. That's awful. So I'm trying to do it without the mic koozie today on the show. So hopefully it works out okay. There's Ken Weaver back in News Closet B. Hello, Mr. Weaver.
How about you?
How's it going?
It's going all right. Sure do wish we could watch that game.
Okay, so wait on that one. Hello, Chris Webber. How are you?
I'm okay.
Up until, I need someone in management in this studio right now. Right now. Look, by the way, I'm aware that we have very serious things to talk about with regard to the terrorist attack yesterday, and we will get to it. We have 4 hours to go. I'm aware of all of that. But we also live in America, and we can have a little fun, too. So, with that in mind. So, I was just fine with everything until 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same, Chris?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So let me just give you a little background insight, folks. Chris Webber and Matt Murphy, we are working together now in the afternoons on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And Chris, as Bell K is, all of the folks that we work with here are professional as the day is long, and I love every single one of them. But I was very excited to work with Chris for a number of reasons, one of which happened to be that he was a fellow Georgia Bulldog. Chris and I grew up, not together, but separately in Georgia.
Yeah.
We, became Bulldog. I don't know exactly when you became a Georgia Bulldog fan, but I'm sure it was at, knee-high to a grasshopper.
Yeah, pretty much.
Me too. And we celebrate that, as many of you are football fans of, the Tennessee Volunteers or the Crimson Tide or the Oklahoma Sooners, as Ken Weaver is. I'm sorry to bring that up, Ken.
Football.
But, a lot of us are football. But we don't do football on this radio show, and I understand that, and we're not going to start today.
No, sir.
However, with what happened yesterday and a cascade of events led to the fact that our beloved Georgia Bulldogs, who were supposed to play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish last evening, are playing right now as we speak, which I took to social media last night to protest, and my protest fell on deaf ears. People had the audacity to suggest that I was protesting for personal reasons. I was looking out for the hard-working, blue-collar
That's all you were doing.
Men and women of America that aren't able to get off work. There are several of you that said that you were rather surprised that I did not call in sick. I thought about it.
I got a stomach ache.
I got a belly ache from
it's
all
hurting.
that. Oh, man. But all of that to say, I'm here for you, we are with you, and we are going to laser focus on the issues of the day. So long as, and I think I can speak for Weber in this, so long as I have an opportunity during the commercial advertisement breaks while you're listening to some of our fine sponsors of Super Talk, check in to see what's going on in the game.
I think that's fair.
I think it's fair. Well, right before we come in, we turn the monitors to where the game's being broadcast. It's ESPN, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to read what it says. Now, I should note, as I turn it over here to CNN to demonstrate what I'm talking about, we have the '1 sports radio station in the state of Tennessee 10 feet away from us.
Yeah, right on the other side of that wall.
Right on the other side of this wall.
Yep.
104.5 The Zone. They are to sports radio what we like to believe we are to news talk radio.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I would bet you every dollar in my bank account, which is about $140. It's a considerable amount of money.
Good thing it's Christmas.
Got
a little something in your stocking.
If I walked over there, you know what I ought to do? I ought to get a remote mic and walk over there to see if they got ESPN.
I'm betting
right now.
they do. Oh,
Ken Weaver's
our roving reporter.
Ken Weaver, roving reporter. Because when I turn it on, it says, the video signal has been interrupted. Please check the cable connection. If the problem continues for more than a few minutes, please call Comcast. I guess we go with Comcast.
All right, just do this because I did this a minute. Go down one channel.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And see what happens.
To Gourmet Holiday?
Yeah. You can watch that, can you not?
Gourmet Holiday is just fine.
Now go up one channel on the other side.
It's going to annoy me.
See, this is something's up here. Mighty strange to me. Why would it just choose this channel?
Huh. You can get Gourmet Holiday and you can get public education programming, but you can't get the ES and the PN. Mr. Weaver has done some sleuthing. Ken Weaver, illustrious award-winning newsman, what have you discovered?
Brother Jackson over there, who is producing the afternoon show, says they had to use one of their coworkers' YouTube TV login.
What?
So
they
we don't
got it.
We don't have it in this building.
We don't have
on our cable
ESPN
package?
in this building.
Apparently, we do not. At least Brother Jackson doesn't. They're in the production booth.
Well, I guess we got to save money where we can.
Okay,
dokie.
This is going to be a long 4 hours. I'm just going to warn everybody.
I will. In all seriousness, folks. I mean, y'all know how. I mean, college football, like anything else, it's an amusement, it's a diversion, it's a lot of fun. We have a good time with it. But I told Weber, like, as we discovered this, and it was seconds before we came on the air, I said, I was okay with all of this until right now.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't know that I'm okay.
I feel like I know what an addict feels like right now when they can't score.
Then you can't get up. You can't get a little something, something.
That's what I'm feeling
This
like.
is actually reminding me of quitting smoking. Where all you can, you know that you should be focused on other things, and all you can think about, if I just had some cigarettes on me, maybe it wouldn't bother me so much. But I ain't got none on me.
Well, boys, if I wouldn't have canceled my YouTube TV after we lost to Missouri.
Well, I got YouTube TV, so we're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
And if you can't find it there is a bootleg going on YouTube right now. So I'm watching it. So
Leave it to Brother Chris.
all is well until they catch it and kick it off, and then I'll find another one.
Well, my YouTube TV just got turned on. Connect your devices. You can easily oh, thank you, YouTube TV. Not now. I'm okay with just watching it on my phone. Thanks so much. We will focus on other matters, however, while we amuse ourselves with that. You know, I did prepare for this though, because I understood that at least a portion of my day might be mildly distracted by what's going on in the football game in New Orleans. And so I warned Chris Webber that if I at all get distracted, I gave him 4 buttons to push. And I said, if at any moment something big happens in the game and I don't seem to be laser focused, then you might want to push one of those 4.
Should we demonstrate?
Yeah, just demonstrate it right now. Just that, yeah.
We interrupt this presentation of the Matt Murphy radio program to bring you the pleasant sounds of good music. While you wait, if it strikes your fancy, have yourself a delicious snack or frosty beverage. The Matt Murphy radio program will be back momentarily.
There's a big play under review, something like that, you know?
Yeah.
We got to see what we got to see. Of course, this was before I realized that we're on the budget plan on the Comcast, and apparently what I'm surprised about is that the lowest rung of the Comcast plan, whatever that is, doesn't include ESPN.
Yeah, I smell something fishy going on here.
It is the basic of the basic.
And it seems to me that that's
Wagon Train's on Channel 11.
Let us know how that's going. All right. It is, I mentioned it's episode 720 of our time together. It's also Locks for Trump Day 306, and Donald Trump cannot become president of the United States soon enough, particularly with regard to what happened yesterday. And that's the serious side of the story today. And we will obviously be covering that comprehensively for you. We're going to have some fun on the other side of things. And we can do both. We can chew bubble gum and walk down the street at the same time. With that said, we have a couple of guests to tell you about. Cameron Smith's going to stop by. Cameron, normally here on these Wednesdays. Wednesday, yesterday, was obviously New Year's Day, and so he will be with us at 4 o'clock today. At 3:30 today, or just after the bottom of the hour news with Ken Weaver, we'll be joined by Brink Fidler. Brink, if you don't know, and I've had him on quite often during the midday hours, he is an incredible resource here in Middle Tennessee with regard to dangerous situations like what happened on Bourbon Street in New Orleans yesterday early morning at around 3 o'clock, officially on New Year's Day. We'll talk with Brink about that coming up at 3:35, exactly how anyone could have anticipated it, why some of the safeguards weren't in place. One of the biggest takeaways for me, well, I'll tell you what, I want to start this at 50,000 feet, and then eventually we'll get it down close enough to where the goats can graze on it. So in the United, and I'm starting intentionally from this place because I think we all need to recognize this in these times of crisis and uncertainty and tragedy as we watch evil before our very eyes. It is the nature of the United States of America that these things happen. It is the nature of the United States of America that if someone decides to do damage to other people for whatever reason, our country insists that we enjoy the freedoms and liberties of movement and of association, that they have the ability to do that. The terrorists only have to be right once. And the law enforcement authorities at their best, and I don't pretend for a moment the FBI is at its best. I don't pretend for a moment that some of these other agencies are at their best. And some of what I saw in these press conferences from this police chief or superintendent or whatever she is in New Orleans demonstrates to me that they were woefully, woefully unprepared for what happened on Bourbon Street on New Year's Day. But let us not fool ourselves that the terrorists only have to be right once. We have to be right 100% of the time. It is why we must remain focused and ever vigilant against these sorts of acts. And it's why I would suggest that the last 4 years have blurred our focus to the point where we were ripe for something like this. And this is not by a long shot the worst that it could be. As a matter of fact, I would consider this a warning shot that we better get our butts in gear. And we better remind ourselves that while the war might be over for us when it comes to terrorism, quote unquote, it is never over for them. There are religious fanatics in this world and in this country right now that want to kill you for nothing other than the way that you live your life. And we better damn sure understand that. Sadly, there have been many agencies in the federal government, in our state governments, not necessarily in the state of Tennessee, but there have been many agencies and many municipalities that have completely lost focus. They're far worried. And look, I'm not knocking any of these groups of people or any of these organizations. I don't care about any of these organizations. I care about the people that we entrust with the duty to protect us. When they're more worried about protecting some rainbow crosswalk in some neighborhood and going after people that had the audacity to cut a donut on a rainbow crosswalk and not dealing with terrorism, well, that's a damn problem. And the days go by and the weeks go by and we don't see the consequence of it. And so we rest on our laurels and we start to believe collectively as society, we start to believe that they aren't out there anymore. And maybe some of us, not all of us, but some of us start to believe that everything's going to be okay. If we don't remain ever vigilant, everything's not going to be okay. If we don't remain ever focused and insist that those that we entrust with these responsibilities remain focused, more of this is to come. And sadly, it's not just about focus. There has been an intentionality over the last 4 years that is going to lend itself to exacerbate this situation. And I understand, and I am fully aware of the background and biography of the individual that was responsible for New Orleans early morning New Year's Day, yesterday. I understand that he was in the military. I also understand that if you present an atmosphere nationwide promoting the radicalization of any individual, regardless of where they were born and regardless of what their background might be, why would we be surprised if we get that radicalization? What do you think globalize the infatata means? Last summer, we didn't, you and I didn't, but as a country, last summer we watched on college campuses and on the streets of New York City and Chicago, Illinois, and Los Angeles, and many other places around the country, we watched on these college campuses and in these city streets as people chanted, "Globalize the infatata, free Palestine." What the hell do you think that means? You saw what it means on Bourbon Street. Normalizing that kind of behavior allows for a rationalization in the minds of evil people, and they commit evil acts. We're going to dissect it today on the Matt Murphy Show. We'll get your telephone calls all afternoon long, 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. You can also hit us up on the Super Text line. It's 22 after on Super Talk. It can be hard to find someone that you trust for your heating and air conditioning needs. Friends, I believe that I have found that person in the form of Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling does it right the first time, and he's not going to charge you an arm and a leg to maintenance your unit. If you've not had your heater maintained as of yet, it's time to get it done with Efficient Heating and Cooling. They offer a $125 special. That means, well, it's not even a special. It's $125 no matter how many units you have at your residence. Bottom line is this, friends, if you need maintenance, you need to call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. And if it's time, they'll tell you that it's time. That's the deal, folks. They're never going to offer you an opportunity to miss a chance that you might have to repair the unit. They're never going to suggest that you replace it when you can repair it. That's the bottom line with Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. I love these guys. I love the fact that they're an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. Call them today at 615-784-4424, 615-784-4424, or efficienthvac.net. Friends, Men of Valor reminds you that over 90% of men who go into prison are going to at some point get out of prison. It's the bottom line. What type of men do you want coming out of those prison walls and out of those prison doors? Around 50%, sadly, commit again. They commit an offense that leads them back to prison. But at Men of Valor, they drop that percentage to in the low teens. It fluctuates between 12, 14% at times. How is that? Because of the power of God and because of the power of God's people. Men of Valor needs people like you to help in the prison systems on their campus, aftercare reentry programs. Men of Valor needs job partners, Bible study teachers, mentors that can disciple men in their everyday lives. Will you join Men of Valor in helping set these captives free? Do so by going to movministry.com. That's movministry.com. Join Men of Valor in their battle against the evils of the world and to present the power of God to men ready to receive. It's Men of Valor.
New Orleans terrorist attack, Vegas Cybertruck blast. Tennessee lawmaker seeks to change a state law requiring cops report people's immigration status, no matter the age. Coming up at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know what I think ought to be a state law is that if we're a news talk radio facility, that we ought to have the appropriate channels coming into our facility to give us the best ability to impart the news to the people that need it.
I'll second that motion.
I'll third it.
All right. That's 3 votes.
That's enough.
Let's see where that gets us. All right, we'll talk with Brink Fidler coming up in just a moment or two, right after the newscast on Super Talk 99.7 WT, and obviously talking about the tragedy that happened, the evil that happened yesterday, the act of terrorism. I will say it, even if Joe Biden chose not to during his first remarks yesterday in the aftermath of the event. It was a tragedy that perhaps could have been avoided. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not diminishing, nor am I in any way avoiding the responsibility that many of these officials in New Orleans and beyond had in this event, because there were opportunities to avoid the tragedy that happened. There were opportunities to stop it prior to it happening. And there were so many mistakes along the way. Hindsight is 20/20, certainly. But I received no comfort from the New Orleans police chief. I received, what was her name? I wrote it down. I don't care. Anna Livingston, something like that. This police chief, these excuses, why there were no bollards, why there were no wedges, why there were no... And they actually said during the initial press conference that they got bested by sidewalks. Well, he went up on sidewalks, they said. As if that was the answer. What? You did not anticipate that a terrorist determined to commit acts of violence against the people of New Orleans on Bourbon Street would go up on sidewalks? I don't quite understand that. Luke is in Shelbyville with a thought on all of this. Hey, Luke, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Quickly, I was in the military, joined in the mid-'90s. When I got to my first unit, they gave us a around-the-world security briefing when they got to the U.S. And at this time in 1996, there was an unknown amount of terrorist cells in the United States. Fast forward 10 years, 2006, I'm getting ready to go do some more work as a civilian. And I probably got the last Soldier Fortune magazine ever printed. And in that magazine, Ollie North had a segment in there on the southern border and all the caches that they had found at that time, which is right under 200. Some of them you could drive a tractor trailer through, weapons, vehicles, drugs, ammunition, the whole gambit. So, yeah, now we're at 2025. And the last 4 years have been incredible.
You know, I know several of I know Chad before me, and I believe Chris Hand. I did not get to catch Chris's show, but I caught enough to hear both of them talking about Sean Ryan, who is a former member of the United States military, has a podcast now. And he was talking about this last November. He's been talking about it for quite some time, the sleeper cells that exist in the country. Luke, thank you for the call. We're going to discuss a lot of that today because we better get right by the threat against us. if you think the war against radical Islam is over, well, you can think that all you want. The war is not over if it's not over for them. They want to eradicate our way of life. They believe that America is a giant evil, and they will patiently lie in wait. Can you imagine if this were not a one-off? And I understand that the FBI, I don't believe them as far as I can throw that organization. They're saying that it was a lone wolf attack. Can you imagine if it wasn't? Let's say, for example, that instead of one of those events, you had 20 simultaneously occurring in the United States of America. Now, I don't mean to keep you up at night, but I believe that there are people that are trying to do that right now. And we better get on the job. It's 30 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, tracking Arctic weather potentially headed for Middle Tennessee. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes, but right now.
This is a special report from ABC News New Orleans attack. I'm Dave Packer. Bourbon Street is reopened after the New Year's Day attack in New Orleans, and it's now believed the killer acted alone.
In a dramatic about-face, investigators now believe the man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd of New Year's Eve celebrants on Bourbon Street did not have an accomplice. But FBI Deputy Assistant Director Christopher Reyes says,
"What I can tell you right now is that he was 100% inspired by ISIS."
Which accounts for the black ISIS flag flying from his rented pickup truck as Shamsuddin Jabbar plowed into a crowd of people before he was shot dead by police. Jim Ryan, ABC News, New Orleans.
Today, more than 1,000 law enforcement officers poring over data, including surveillance, interviews, and video posted online. The FBI says Jabbar drove from Houston to New Orleans on Tuesday evening and posted several videos proclaiming his support for ISIS and mentioning he joined ISIS before this summer. This is ABC News.
As of now, police in Las Vegas say they see no indication that the explosion of the Cybertruck was linked to the attack in New Orleans, but there are similarities like the suspect's military service, timing, and where they rented their vehicles from. Las Vegas Sheriff Kevin McMahill says while they don't yet see a connection, they do see very strange similarities, so they're not willing to rule in or rule out anything at this point. Here in Nashville, Metro Council member Jacob Cupin, whose district includes downtown, tells News 2 he's putting together a meeting to look at what happened in New Orleans, look at what that would look like here, and what needs to be done to prevent it, maybe some upgrades if they're needed. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. And we just picked up a crash 40 eastbound right after Fessler's Lane. That's going to be right there at exit 212. Still dealing with a couple of crashes on 65. We've got one near Metro Center, northbound near Rosa Parks Boulevard. That's exit 85. Then 65 southbound right before Concord Road in Brentwood. You've got the HOV lane blocked there. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, friends, are you tired of living in pain? Do you feel like nobody listens to you when you talk to them about your pain? Well, you know you have choices when it comes to your care. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, they do things a little bit differently. They take the time to listen, to understand. They create a team approach to pain management for you. What would you do if your pain was gone? Imagine the freedom of the possibility. At the Dr. Gill Center, they've helped thousands of people just like you get out of pain over the last 30 years. You don't do anything that long without doing it well and right. Dr. Gill, Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V, and the rest of the team at the Dr. Gill Center want to see you. They have well over 60 years of combined experience, and the team has the knowledge and compassion to make your life pain-free without having to take needles, without having to pop pills, and without having to consider surgery. 615-882-4838, 615-882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. I invite you to call them today or visit them online at callmepainfree.com. That's callmepainfree.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the Dr. Gill Center. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for the Glock Store, and I love talking about the Glock Store. When I go to train, and I really should go more often, but I try to get to the Glock Store as much as I possibly can because they have such a great Shoot 270 range. The Shoot270.com indoor ranges, they have private shooting rooms, personal instructors, not multiple lanes with some stranger standing next to you. You don't know this guy, and he's popping them off. Here's an exciting 2025 New Year, New Deal for you. All month long, book a shooting session at Shoot270.com. You'll get to shoot a full auto H&K suppressed MP5 just for mentioning my name, Matt Murphy. That is a $50 value just for saying you heard about it on The Murphy Show. And even if you listen to Dan or Chris, make sure to use my name because I want more my name in the bucket than their names. You know how it goes. So I invite you to say my name, and you'll get that $50 value, a full auto H&K suppressed MP5 for just for mentioning the name. The incredible and comparable Shoot270.com, only in Nashville, and the only place to train is at the Glock Store. Minutes away from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere. It's the incomparable Glock Store. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll get to your calls momentarily. If you're on hold, just be patient with me. I have a guest that I am very curious to hear from. His name is Brink Fidler. He's with Defend Systems. You hear me talking about Brink quite often. Absolutely love what he does with Defend Systems, and I love his area of expertise, which is what we're about to talk about now. Brink joins us on the Matt Murphy hotline at 38 minutes after the hour. Brink, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Matt. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I'm sad to see the new year rang in with more violence, in this case, terrorism-related. Without leading you in any particular way, Brink, I mean, using your level of expertise, almost 20 years at the Metro Nashville Police Department and many, many years as the owner of Defend Systems, just give me a sense of your thoughts on this.
Tragic, but not surprising at all. I first sent you that clip, and I know Chris Hand played some different audio from Sean Ryan's show earlier, but the things that have been planned for this country for a long time by people that want to do us harm, it's not surprising. Of course, there's a few things that were surprising here. Obviously, that U.S.-born guy served in the military. But at the end of the day, it was a colossal fail on the law enforcement's part to stop vehicular traffic from accessing densely populated pedestrian areas. And I'm sure you've probably seen the video by now of him just driving right around that police car. That's just it's inexcusable not to do better knowing that these threats are out there.
You know, I try to give the benefit of the doubt, Brink, and I try to say we have to be right 100% of the time, and the bad guys only have to be right once for something like this to happen. But let's focus in on that you just mentioned. The police chief in New Orleans said, well, we were in the midst of repairing our bollards. I've heard them described as bollards. I've heard them described as wedges. And, for those that don't know, a bollard is just a big piece of metal in the middle of a roadway that prevents a car from going down that particular passage, right?
Yeah, typically metal. Sometimes they're concrete. Sometimes you'll see large planters outside of stadiums and things like that made of concrete, but they're all designed to do the same thing, and they're all considered bollards, and they're all designed to stop vehicular access to pedestrian areas.
Is it, in your mind, a legitimate excuse to say, well, we were trading these things out, we were preparing for the Super Bowl? It would seem to me that the Sugar Bowl would be a big event too. And I understand that there's always something going on Bourbon Street, always something going on in New Orleans, but being New Year's Eve, I would feel like there's a better time to do this if you have to replace bollards.
I don't necessarily have an issue with the fact that they were whatever they were doing with them to get ready for another event, but why are we using basically the equivalent of a sawhorse instead of another police vehicle to stop that? Right? You know what I mean? It was complacency at the end of the day. It's not that we didn't have something else in our possession that could have stopped that truck from turning down that street. We did. They're called vehicles. We just didn't think to put one there because, we got a lot going on. I mean, it's incredibly incompetent to me, and it's complacency. As it's saying in law enforcement, and probably the military too, and it's just this: complacency kills, because it does.
So I considered it, and I posted something on social media. I considered it to be a fireable offense, and I hate to react in that knee-jerk way, but for the police chief to say, well, you have to understand they went on the sidewalk, that's just not an excuse that is acceptable to me. And you know what? I don't believe for a moment that this police chief in New Orleans wanted this to happen. Obviously, I know that she did not, but at the same time, there have to be some consequences for the actions that ultimately led to the death of 14 people.
100%. And that's just a ridiculous statement. I mean, that reminds me of the whole sloped roof statement during the assassination attempt on Trump. I mean, this is somebody that's head of an agency or a spokesperson or whatever that doesn't know what she's talking about and probably should not have been the ones to do the briefing because, they drove on the sidewalk. Like, that's never happened before. Like, there's a reason there's bollards and things like that in place to prevent people from driving down sidewalks. So it's not like she's basically trying to give credit to the bad guy that he was like super clever or something. And that's just makes her sound ridiculous, to be honest with you, which is really sad. And, there's 14 families grieving those losses because of something so simple that could have been prevented.
What else, if anything, Brink, does your expertise, bring to the table in terms of what you've seen or what could I come at this understanding that the nature of the country that we live in, the type of nation that we want to live in, is one of freedom and liberty and freedom of movement. And so that necessarily means that we're not going to be secure and safe as we are out and about at a football game or wherever it might be at any given moment. But there are things that we expect those that we entrust our safety to do to try to mitigate the possibility of something like this happening.
Yeah, true. But Gloria and I were talking earlier about this, and the biggest thing people need to understand is that don't be complacent with your safety and think that you're in good hands because the government's got this. They don't. Like, you need to take responsibility for your safety and the safety of your family into your own hands as well. And maybe not. There are certain things that people could have done here, but a lot of these videos you see are from the event last night. The people all began to run the direction that the truck was traveling. And I understand that, in a dangerous situation, our brain tells us that distance from danger is our friend. That's true with most danger, but obviously the more appropriate thing would have been to adjacently run away from the road, not run down the road, right?
Yeah, there's one
involved.
There's one video, and I'm certain you've seen it, and it's tragic. And I'm not faulting anybody, but there are three people standing in the middle of Bourbon Street, and the three people start to run away from the truck. Two of the people run perpendicular to the truck, and one runs parallel to the truck, and the one that ran parallel to the truck got killed. And obviously, in those seconds, you don't blame the individuals, but I mean, it's the type of training that you and I talk about on the regular that perhaps can be in your head at that moment, just because you never know when something like that's going to happen.
Amen. And we part of our teach on the evade piece. It's not just running; it's how do you run, right? Like, and what steps do you take while we call it evade, but while you're evading that, allows you to do things like that. But if you don't think about this stuff ahead of time, then the chances of you doing it well under stress are not real high. I mean, that's what training's all about, of course, too. So leaving yourself outs, obviously, like be aware of your surroundings and understand where your ways out are if something bad begins to happen. And then medical. I always harp on the medical, and I don't know because I don't know all the various injuries, but I always wonder, were any of those 14 people treatable? Had people on the scene had the training and maybe a little bit of equipment on them to do any kind of life-threatening or life-saving intervention? I don't know is the answer, but that's why the whole medical, bleeding control, all that, it's just a life skill that people should have. It's not, it's like CPR, right? I mean, that's because this stuff happens.
We hear today, just 36 hours after the tragedy of the event, we're hearing more about the assailant and, the fact that he was a member of the United States military, that he apparently became radicalized fairly recently. We know about the nature of the southern border. We understand the possibility that there are individuals that want to do our way of life and our people harm here in this country, whether they were born here or not. I set it up that way to ask you, Brink. I mean, is it as simple as if you see something odd to say it to someone that might be in a position to take action on it prior to these events happening? I mean, is it as simple as that?
It is, and we have to do better. Everybody's so worried about offending somebody or being called whatever name, racist, all the above. I mean, there's a report that the assailant in this situation, that his radical ideology was reported to his supervisor when he was in the Army, but they did not act on it for fear of being called racist or something like that. Same with the 9/11 attackers. I mean, there were airport workers that saw those guys and knew something was off, but they felt like if they said anything because they were foreign, that somebody would think they're, discriminating or whatever. We have got to get off that train and understand, like, if you see something, say something. If you're wrong, great. But if you're right, holy crap. I mean, what difference could it possibly make? So people just have to be willing to stand up and say something. And because a lot of times people do see stuff prior to the attack. And obviously in this case, that happened as well.
Let me ask you in the few minutes that we have left, Brink, about our town. Obviously, there are many connective tissues between Nashville, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana, primarily our entertainment district and the accessibility and availability of access to our entertainment district. You worked the streets of, you were obviously specialized, but you're intimately familiar with what it's like to be a Metro Nashville police officer. Let's put it that way. Are we at risk in Nashville?
Absolutely. But in the same breath, I'll say that our police department and our emergency services does a really good job of planning and providing safety for those events and making it very, very, very difficult for bad guys to do bad things. The amount of things that are in place that you don't even see or know about is pretty incredible. So they do a great job with it. But, nothing's infallible. I mean, nothing. I mean, you can always have a plan, but mistakes can be made. And if we were perfect at this, nobody would ever escape prison or jail, right? So no plan is perfect. And so back to being vigilant with not only what you see and all that, but also have a plan. If you're going to go somewhere with your family and you got a crowded event, look at a map beforehand, figure out where you're going to go, where you're going to be spending time, where your ways out are, all those sorts of things, and just do that ahead of time. It doesn't take but a few minutes, but man, if something bad starts to happen, you will be super thankful you did that instead of just being in a mass panic. I think Nashville would be high on a priority list just because, they want high impact, right? And if you've ever seen Broadway on a Friday or Saturday, I mean, that would be high impact. But I know law enforcement is very plugged in and are doing everything they can proactively to prevent something like that from happening. But again, don't be complacent and trust that the government is there to protect you. You need to take your safety into your own hands.
To your knowledge, I think this is the case. The last time I went down, I rarely go down to Lower Broad on a Friday or Saturday just because of the number of people, right? But the last few times I've gone, it seems that it's SOP now for them to close off the street from like Bridgestone Arena on down.
Yes.
Correct. Do you expect in the aftermath of this that you'll see some additional fortification, particularly on those Friday and Saturday nights?
I do. Yeah. And, I think where they thought, or they think we're probably good here, they're going to double it up. I mean, I know those guys. I know the guys that plan that stuff and are constantly evaluating all that. And, they're going to leave no stone unturned. And if they think it's great, they're going to make it double great. You know what I mean? They're not going to just go with the same old. And I would say this, though. Obviously, all that gets looked at after an attack or after an event happens. But our guys and gals of the police department do a great job with this, even when there's not an attack. I mean, they take it very seriously. I always have. And, like we had the draft here and didn't have a single event. And you talk about one place to do something, to make a splash. And it's just, I'm convinced it's because of all the policies and protocols and procedures and planning that went into providing a safe environment. And those things are still in place regardless of whether it's a draft or a Friday night. I just think that everybody now is obviously the awareness level is super heightened, not just for law enforcement, but for civilians and just everyday people walking around as well, which it should be. We're all in this together.
Well, sadly, I said at the beginning of the show, you tell me if I'm right or wrong. I mean, this has to be I understand for the 14 families that have to bury their loved ones, it is obviously, it's their 9/11, but this is not the big one in our society nowadays. I mean, I fear that there are individuals in this country right now that are planning even worse. I'm sad to say it, but I fear it. I feel like I know you well enough to think that you probably fear the same.
I do. I agree 1,000%. I don't think this is going to be a great year for us. I think it's going to be a potentially tragic year in a lot of ways because of all the things that we do know about from intelligence briefings and other things that people have planned that want to do us harm. So, you talk about it a lot, but just, preparing yourself and your family. And if you're not a firearm owner, you need to become one and you need to be very proficient with that firearm and you need to be prepared to defend yourself, especially if we're talking about multiple coordinated attacks. I mean, if you think about just the Christmas Day bombing, right, that shut Nashville down, right? Like that was one event. The Covenant shooting shut Nashville down for all, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Eventually law enforcement's going to run out of resources, right? And so back to people being able to defend themselves, defend their school, defend their church, defend their business, defend their mall, whatever it is. Yes, law enforcement is an awesome partner, but understand they are a partner. They are not the end-all, be-all because a lot can happen from the time something starts to happen before law enforcement can ever get there.
I say it.
You need to be proficient.
You've heard me say it 1,000 times that we are the first responders. And that is no disrespect to police officers, EMT. We, the citizens, are the first responders. And sadly, I was reminded of something else that I say quite often when you were talking about the police chief as we were having that discussion at the beginning, that hope is not a plan. And it seems like, sadly, there was a lot of hope that nothing would happen while they were trying to do some repairs to Bourbon Street. Brink, we've got to leave it there. I always value your expertise. Thank you for stopping by, and we look forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Take care. There's Brink Fidler, Defend Systems, defendsystems.com, 54 after the hour. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for U.S. Pest. Protection starts in your home. We've been talking a lot about protection here over the last hour or so. Well, protection when it comes to pest starts and ends with U.S. Pest. J.K. and Erica Brister want to help you protect your home from the creepy crawlies that want in, and they want to take advantage of your things. I'm talking about your food, your warmth, everything that you enjoy in your home. These communist little bugs want those things. You need to stop it with U.S. Pest. It starts by a call to U.S. Pest at 590-1260. 590-1260. Of course, that's in 615. Allow these folks to come over and give you an absolutely free inspection. They'll check out your pest issue. They'll check out your termite issue. They'll check out your crawl space, and they will let you know what you need to do, and it's always 100% money back guaranteed with U.S. Pest. U.S. Pest, 590-1260 or online at uspest.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only, the great American company, U.S. Pest. Friends, I've been talking to Brink Fidler with Defense Systems, and it occurs to me, if you're a business owner, if you are a decision maker at a school or a church, it behooves you to call Brink Fidler today. Allow Brink Fidler to be your go-to resource when it comes to active shooter situations, workplace violence, security improvement consultation, whether it's emergency or intruder action plans that you're looking for, rapid response medical training. They can customize anything and everything to your individual facility. If you're a business owner, allow me to say to you, as I've said many, many times in the past, hope is not a plan. It is time to get trained for you, your employees, and it's time to train with Defense Systems. Call Defense Systems today at 236-6484, 615-236-6484, or defensesystems.com.
Four o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. But right now,
this is a special report from ABC News, New Orleans attack. I'm Dave Packard. Bourbon Street is back open after the deadly car ramming attack early New Year's Day, and the Sugar Bowl, which was delayed yesterday, is being played right now. President Biden this afternoon.
People in New Orleans are sending an unmistakable message. They will not let this attack or the attackers' deluded ideology overcome us.
And the investigation continues into that attack that killed 14 people. Dozens are injured. The driver of that truck that rammed the crowd, shot dead by police, is now believed to have been a lone wolf. FBI Assistant Deputy Director Christopher Rea.
We do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack is involved in this attack except for Shamsuddin Jabbar.
Jabbar, an Army veteran from Texas, is believed to have been radicalized over the past several months. His truck found with an ISIS flag inside. This is ABC News.
Yeah, Metro Police say they're reviewing the New Orleans attack to see if they need to enhance their counterterrorism efforts here in Nashville. And as for the Vegas Cybertruck bombing, here's Alex Stone.
Master Sergeant Matthew Livelsberger served 19 years in the military. He deployed multiple times to Afghanistan and was highly decorated. An active-duty Green Beret, he had won the Bronze Star Medal with Valor for heroism under fire. He was approved for leave from Germany, assigned to Special Forces when he was home in Colorado. He rented the Cybertruck from Denver, according to police. They tracked his route from Denver to Las Vegas, where they say he shot himself in the head, and then the Cybertruck exploded.
Here in Tennessee, school resource officers will not be required to report a student's immigration status under a bill filed by Chattanooga Republican State Senator Todd Gardenhire. He tells News 2.
Almost everybody in the Senate knows where my heart is on the issue of children. And I think it can be done. And if it doesn't, I'll come back next year and do the same thing.
Gardenhire's bill seeks to amend a law passed last year that requires police notify federal agencies of a person's immigration status only if they're arrested for a crime. The flu, colds, and RSV hitting harder later in the season than hospitals in Tennessee say they anticipated. Associate Professor of Pediatrics and Pediatrics Emergency Physician at Monroe Carroll Junior Children's Hospital, Dr. Marla Levine, tells Channel 4 they've seen a steady flow of worried parents with their babies.
It's okay if your child doesn't eat. Hydration is key. That's where we come into play. That's where we as pediatric ER doctors can help the child.
Another doctor telling News 2 the rate of people getting sick with respiratory illnesses will probably stay high for another week before there's a decline. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Brentwood got a crash blocking the right shoulder, 65 southbound before Concord Road, exit 71. And right now in Smyrna, We see closed due to police activity. Old Nashville Highway southbound, right there south of Lee Victory Parkway, on to Baker Road. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is the Matt Murphy Show. Hour number 2 starts right now. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for being around. 6 minutes after the hour. I appreciate all of you. Mike's been hanging in there on the phone lines. You can jump in on the phones if you want to talk about what went down New Year's Day, the morning of New Year's Day, about 3 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, it is the primary source of discussion right now. A secondary source of discussion, the Las Vegas Cybertruck explosion, an individual pulling up to Trump Tower, attempting to make some sort of point regarding Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I don't think this individual's point was made, in as much as the Cybertruck actually facilitated a much less of a disaster because of the nature of the Cybertruck. So we'll talk about that as well. Thank you, each and every one of you. Y'all have got my back. I appreciate you. At 4 minutes after 7 o'clock, thank you for letting us know what's going on in the college football playoff game between the Georgia Bulldogs, our beloved Georgia Bulldogs, and I say that because Chris Webber's here as well behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. Normally, that is priority number 1. Chasing YouTube rabbit holes to make sure that he can actually watch the game, I think, might be priority number 1 today. I don't know.
I'm having to watch around like the black box that says this game is not available on YouTube because it's copyrighted, but I can see most of the field.
All right, catching up those of you who are just joining us on this Thursday edition. Ken Weaver's back in the newsroom laughing at both of us.
How about you?
How's it going, Weaver?
Going good.
Okay.
Going good. Busier than the one-legged men in a, well, you know what kind of kicking contest.
Butt kicking contest, yeah. Cameron Smith is also here. Normally, Cameron visits us on Wednesdays, but yesterday being a holiday, we invited him to come back strictly because we missed yesterday. It has nothing to do with the nature of this afternoon.
Yes, and I knew that when I drove here. I was like, I bet Matt has loads of things he wants to talk about that aren't the Georgia-Notre Dame game.
Oh, no, I don't. Is that going on right now?
What is the football?
By the way, I want to thank, I don't know if you've seen the super text line, Weber.
I haven't.
But these listeners are keeping us up to date because we alerted them to our dilemma last hour, and so they are sending updates for the game. And thank y'all so much. We appreciate it. Y'all are so good, so kind.
You can appreciate it. I think it would make me even more anxious.
Yeah. Well,
so I won't look.
I have it on the YouTube TV in here, and if you need that, I can get it to you. Right now, Weber is just running around YouTube and picking up these janky feeds that people like put their phones up and they record the television that's going on for some reason. And he's picking up those. Picking up those secondhand janky legal feeds.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
If you weren't joining us first hour, we were laser focused on what we have to do today. Obviously, we're here for you. I know that most of you listening to us right now don't give a rip about the Georgia Notre Dame game, or maybe you don't really care as much as we do. But Weber and I, being Georgia fans, we kind of care. And everything was going to be fine. We were going to do a professional radio broadcast while the Georgia game was on in the background. Right? I mean, that's fair.
Obviously.
Is that not fair?
That's fair.
Okay, that's fair.
Super fair.
Because in the interest of full disclosure, and I'm just being honest, and this is for you, not for me, for you. If I knew this game was always scheduled during a time where I was going to be on the radio, I would have taken a day off.
That's fair.
Is that fair?
And you would have.
And I would have taken a day.
That's true. I would do the same.
Yeah, right. I mean, it makes sense. So because it was switched, obviously we weren't able to do that, and I wouldn't have done that to you. I wouldn't have done that to you or to anybody else. But I admit that, my interest is a little divided. So everything was fine. do the show, focus on the important stuff, focus on the things that matter, have it on in the background, take a looky-loo, a little peeky peek every once in a while. And then we found out that our facility, we don't get ESPN.
Which is shocking because do you know that this station has some sports stations? Did you know that?
I did. Right over there.
Yeah. Yeah, right around the corner.
Right over there.
Well, it's very true, though, that you said how great the listeners are giving you the scores. Like, absolutely. Before I came over here, I got to spend a little bit of time with Terry and Dalton over at Snyder Fleet because they heard me on the air lamenting that I needed some heavy tires to get my boys some exercise. And they're like, come on down. No idea. The most tires I've ever seen in one place.
What?
Yeah. So they
got big boy tires?
Yeah, they outfit all the 18-wheelers, the commercial fleet type stuff, and that was the low inventory for accounting purposes. And I'm talking stacks of giant truck tires, Michelin's, just, floor to ceiling. So cool.
Now you have the tires necessary to give the boys a little bit of a something.
I'm going to hook them up to a tire and make them drag them.
It feels like, and I don't know because I don't have kids, but it feels like having a teenage boy in the house is like having a 1-year-old puppy.
Yeah.
If you wear them out, your life is pretty good.
Yeah, I got the tires in the back of my truck right now.
The puppies are cute. They're nice. Just as long as you get them. Wearing them out is the trick, though.
Yeah. My 10-year-old was playing a game. He got we're a very competitive family. He got very competitive, and he started hollering, and my wife said 10 laps. Which means he has to go run around a cul-de-sac. And then he said, Mom, she goes 15 laps.
Oh, wow.
And so
cracking the whip.
He was out the door running. And, look, we're doing the best we can. But, yeah, it's like the brain's not all the way developed, but the energy level is through the roof. And that's just another day in paradise.
I wanna dive deep. By the way, one of our lovely 0336 says 3 minutes has expired. I actually got an exception today on that rule, 0336.
Yeah, the hell with that rule.
From Paul Mason, our program director here at the illustrious Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I went to his office immediately and said, I need an exception today. You know the 3-minute rule?
No.
So folks get grumpy about Weaver and Weber and Murphy talking football, and I got it written into the contract. I have 3 minutes a day. That's max.
That's fair.
And Weber has to take the time, and after 3 minutes, we're shut down on football talk. But today we got an exemption.
I don't understand how people get upset about the topics on a radio show. It's like, move on. Stop talking about that thing I don't like. Did you think you were the only one listening?
It's like a buffet.
Yeah.
We're slinging the hits. We're going to provide you with the beef tips.
Yeah.
But there's also going to be broccoli on the menu too. And you know what? If you don't care for the broccoli, just we'll get you something out.
But it happens. And good grief, we're in the South. People care about football. It's part of our politics. Everyone knows that.
Well, obviously the game is on today because of a very, very serious reason, and that is what happened in New Orleans in the overnight hours of New Year's Day. We want to discuss that. Mike's been holding on for way too long, and I want to get to you, Mike, because of your patience, and I thank you for that patience. I appreciate you holding through our interview with Brink Fidler. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Mike. I hope you are.
I'm doing good. And I want to preface this. I spent 30 years on Metro Nashville Police Department, so I enjoyed the interview that you had, and I understand where he came from. And this is not anything about the guys that are working the street, but you were talking about the lady that's running the New Orleans Police Department. And what I wanted to say about that was that people need to look and see where she's been. She's been all over the place.
I know where she's been, and she was fired from the last place she's been.
Yes, sir. Fired from Oakland. I guess she got fired from Washington, but she's been all over the place. The New Orleans Police Department under her leadership is woefully understaffed. The mayor of New Orleans has got an approval rating somewhere in the high 20s or the low 30s and hasn't been found around anywhere to be interviewed. And so I doubt, when you were talking about accountability for her, I doubt seriously that she's thinking about firing anybody if she ever comes out of hiding down there. So,
Well, I said last night that I believed it to be a fireable offense for her to offer the excuse. I mean, how hard is it? I understand that no one wants to take responsibility, that no one wants to take but how hard is it to say he exploited a gap in our security measures because of repairs that were going on and we didn't anticipate it? Instead, you're blaming the sidewalk? You're saying, well, he got up on the sidewalk.
Yeah, but she's incompetent, and that I agree on. But what I'm saying is, not only is she incompetent, apparently the leadership that they have in the mayor's office is incompetent down there also. So she's not going to fire the police chief.
Well, we'll see. Look, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any faith in the leadership in the city of New Orleans. I can tell you that.
Well, and that's a problem with it. It's whether it's on a national level with the FBI. The guys that are working in the FBI are great guys, but the leadership is terrible that we've had, and it's the same in a lot of cities that they've got.
Well, it seems that, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Mike, but it seems that leadership within the FBI has sadly laid out directives and put priorities in place that have seemed to, from the layman's perspective, focus to the FBI's attention on places that it doesn't necessarily need to be focused on, and put priorities over real threats to the American people.
And that's why American people are at risk, not only nationally, but also on local levels, just like what we're talking about down there.
Thank you for the call, Mike. Appreciate you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, take care.
Matt, don't worry. Joe Biden's on it.
My goodness gracious. I mean, he dares to mention the name ISIS, which was obvious to everyone by the time he took the stage yesterday. So, bully for him for having the courage. Then he refused to – I don't think he said the words terrorism. I don't believe he did, or terrorist during his initial remarks. I wish that liberal Democrats like Joe Biden were as focused on stopping some of these issues as they were with being politically correct.
Yeah. Or just these are all related. Watching the media sort of lament at the end of 2024, maybe we should have been paying more attention to Biden's cognitive capacities.
Right.
Guys, the election already happened. We're done. You're just taking stock of the year.
Did you see the CBS report? I had it, and I never played the clip. The CBS report where the one journalist said, well, what was one of the biggest misses of 2024? Mm-hmm. And she presented Joe Biden's cognitive ability and was like, boy, that was a big miss, as if they weren't the ones that actively covered it up.
How could we have known?
Who knew? If only we had some investigative journalism.
And this is why people just don't trust the legacy media. It is what I fight against so regularly, is when you act surprised at something people could tell with their own eyes and ears, you're not surprised. You're just a liar. Like, you didn't want to know, so you chose not to. Say that. Don't say, well, we really missed there. Oh, golly, I wish we would have known something.
Well, and many of these organizations were actively, as late as June, prior to his debate, saying, oh, he's as good as he's been. Joe Scarborough is the obvious and easiest example. Oh, he's as good. He's cogent. He's cogent. Shut up, Joe.
Well, he was the fact that they've now used the word sundowning repeatedly. For anybody that's dealt with somebody in cognitive decline, you understand what that means. It means the president of the United States has, quote unquote, good days and bad days. And you know who has to be on call all the time? The president of the United States.
Yeah, you don't get to have bad days.
Right. And so if the president's sitting there saying, well, I can't communicate clearly, and then the chief of staff or somebody says, okay, let's just call it for today. Oh, my goodness.
Right. So then who's president?
You're the chief of staff. You have a staff.
I mean, it doesn't go to the vice president.
No.
Right? I mean, it just becoms his inner circle, the people that know.
Right. That weren't elected.
Right.
And that really does matter. And I've been Hill staff. I've been staff in the House and the Senate. And I can tell you there's a huge difference between somebody like me who's there and competent and capable and can answer questions and knows what to do, and the person who the public elected to hold the office. That I am there to support them, and if they are not there, then the public does not have the person that they put their trust in.
All right, this is an important conversation because it's a gap within. It's a gap of understanding between the people, the American citizen that deserves to know, and what's truly going on. And we expect that reporters, that people within the legacy media, and they don't do it anymore, and thankfully we have alternative forms of media that are exposing this, they are expected to provide us this information. Well, what happens when we lose faith in that? We lose faith in what we're being told today about New Orleans. We don't have faith in any information that we get from these corrupted bureaucratic organizations, and particularly, especially when it's being fed through, because what I would expect is, even if I believe, for example, the FBI at its head, not the field agents, but at its head, is corrupted, I would expect that there are at least gatekeepers in the media that will expose that. And now I don't have any faith that they're exposing anything.
No, and that's completely fair. And also the fact that when the boss is there, right, when the president is at his full capacity, he's got the ability to look at the FBI director and look at the other agency heads and say, I want to see the job you're doing done right. You better tell me what's going on or I'll replace you. And when that pressure's not there, then really the agency heads kind of do what they want.
This attack in New Orleans, and I want to dissect it with you, but it also presents an opportunity, I think, to overcome some political stuff going on in D.C. I don't expect that what's going to happen tomorrow with the Speaker of the House vote is going to be nearly as volatile as it perhaps could have been. Maybe I'm wrong.
I hope not.
What do you think?
I know Massey's out. And if you have more than Massey out, we're going to do round after round, and we're going to play this game, and it's going to be pageantry for pageantry's sake, so that those who think they are righteous can make a spectacle.
All right, let's dissect some of that. We'll talk about the New Orleans event. We'll get your telephone calls in on it, 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986, either via super text or telephone call. It's 22 after the hour on Super Talk. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. The new year is here, and in 2025, I would invite you to put that pain that you're experiencing to bed, whether it's back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain. All can be treated with no surgery, no needles, and no downtime. At the Dr. Gill Center, they've been helping people get back to a pain-free life for over 30 years. So many people think that the Dr. Gill Center is just a chiropractic care center, and of course, they are a chiropractic care center. They also have state-of-the-art industry equipment like their Class 5 laser system, red light therapy, spinal decompression, all designed to pinpoint inflammation in the body, reduce pain, reduce swelling, accelerate healing. So regardless of where the pain might be or what your pain level might be, it's time to call Dr. Gill. Don't take a pill. Call Dr. Gill and the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. 615-882-4838. 615-882-4838. Or online, callmepainfree.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
New Orleans attack, Vegas Cybertruck bombing update, and a 14-year-old being chased by Metro Police tosses away a handgun for the second time. We'll tell you about it at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Holy moly. I want to hear about that. That's a professional news tease, right? That wins you awards right there.
I've heard that.
That's right. I'm interested. I hope you are as well. It's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN on a Thursday that feels kind of like a Monday. It also feels a little bit like a Friday, but it's not either of those things. It's actually Thursday. It's January 2, and a Happy New Year to all of you. Happy 2025. Cameron Smith is with us. He is my wingman today as Matt Murphy hosts until 7 o'clock while we have one eye on the news going on in New Orleans, one eye on the news going on in Las Vegas. We have a third eye going on in Washington, D.C. as well. So I want to delve back into the New Orleans stuff, but while we're on the topic, you have an article coming out on
tomorrow morning,
Mike Johnson.
On Johnson, and it's a fireball because I think that I understand Massey's perspective on Thomas Massey, representative from Kentucky, super smart guy, that he doesn't like Johnson and thinks Johnson's going to, be the next Paul Ryan. I've worked with Mike Johnson. He's as conservative as anybody has been since Newt Gingrich in the speaker's role. And Newt had a, 18-seat, 12-seat buffer that Johnson doesn't have. And so it's a math problem right now more than anything, that if you have folks saying, well, if we don't get what we want, we won't support it. Well, okay, but just recognize Republicans can't govern if we don't stick together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I understand. I mean, I don't know that I even quite understand the frustration with Mike Johnson outside of the idea that he was willing to do the CR.
Yep.
He was willing to kick the debt ceiling. I understand that frustration. I don't understand how we can't see the forest for the trees. And there doesn't seem to ever be a solution for those that are saying, no, this is a step too far, whether it's Massey or, Chip Roy's really being dodgy. There are several others that are being dodgy. Well, what are these solutions? One, there's not another Republican that has offered their name to service as Speaker of the House. So without another alternative, what is your point?
Right. That, and what I look at is, and Ray's going to love this, but we know what
Get ready, Ray.
We know what a rhino is. Republican in name only. We'll call them the big government establishment type of Republicans. But there's another type of Republican that I want to bring to your audience. These are the cave Republicans, conservatives against virtually everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got your rhinos and you got your cave people. Well, the problem is you can only spare one vote right now. It'll be 2 once Matt Gaetz is replaced, but very tight margin in the House. So if you're a cave Republican saying, we can't do any of these things, we can't spend this money, no farm bill, no foreign aid, none of this stuff, okay? You get what you want. Then one of these rhinos says, no, I'm not supporting it. And so now you lose a vote that way. Well, if you go to get that rhino vote, you lose a cave vote. And pretty soon, we're just frozen.
Well, and some of our friends on the conservative right, and look, I understand the frustration.
Oh, absolutely.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, one of my central priorities in my professional life is to remind people that we're going to be doomed as a country if we don't get our debt under control.
Amen.
But at this moment in time, the rhino vote, whoever you think of as a rhino, that rhino vote matters as much as you described it, the cave guy vote.
Yep.
And the people of that person's district elected them too.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, and I don't mean to lash my listening audience with a wet noodle, but it seems to me that a lot of times we conveniently forget that.
Yes.
That California's Republicans are not the same thing as Tennessee's Republicans.
Amen.
And they have a vote too. They represent their constituency too. And we can get as mad about it as we want to, but you have to build in the Congress of the United States of America a consensus, and votes matter, especially when it comes to Speaker of the House.
Yes. And, oh, by the way, every other freaking vote we're going to have in the House for the rest of this Congress.
Right.
And I get, so there, I will say that.
Hey, hold your thought. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to do that to you. I apologize, but I'm getting glared at by Chris Webber. He might be glaring because of something happening in the football game, or me. I don't know which. One way or the other, it's time for Ken Weaver in the news.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we have learned the situation going on there in Smyrna with police activity closing Old Nashville Highway. This is going to be southbound, just south of Lee Victory Parkway onto Baker Road. Apparently, someone is holed up in a home and may be armed and not wanting to obey police commands to come out peacefully. We'll keep you apprised as to that situation there. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. During an event inside the White House today, President Biden discussed the ongoing investigation into the terror attack in New Orleans on New Year's that killed 14 people. Biden saying he has assembled the entire defense and intelligence community to this investigation. Says they've found no information there is any link from this attack to the Cybertruck explosion in Vegas.
Federal law enforcement and the intelligence community are actively investigating any foreign or domestic contacts and connection that could possibly be relevant to the attack. And so we're also continuing to investigate whether or not there's any connection between the New Orleans attack and the explosion in Las Vegas.
Despite a decade in the military, a job that paid him well, and a family that cared about him, Shamsuddin Jabbar used a pickup truck as a weapon to kill 14 people who were celebrating New Year's on Bourbon Street. As for Vegas, here's Alex Stone.
Master Sergeant Matthew Livelsberger served 19 years in the military. He deployed multiple times to Afghanistan and was highly decorated. An active-duty Green Beret, he had won the Bronze Star Medal with Valor for heroism under fire. He was approved for leave from Germany, assigned to Special Forces when he was home in Colorado. He rented the Cybertruck from Denver, according to police. They tracked his route from Denver to Las Vegas, where they say he shot himself in the head, and then the Cybertruck exploded.
Here in Nashville, police say they arrested 4 teenagers who were in a stolen Toyota Sequoia overnight. A Metro copter tracked it in East Nashville. Spike strips on the ground brought it to a stop in Madison, where the kids jumped out and ran away. Police say the 14-year-old driver tossed away a handgun right before they caught him. They say this kid was arrested for stealing cars and evading arrest when he was 13, and in September, they say he had a gun. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, so again in Smyrna, you have Old Nashville Highway southbound shut down right there just south of Lee Victory Parkway over to Baker Road for somebody holed up in their house, not obeying police commands to come out peacefully. So that area is going to be closed for the time being. Right now, I'm not seeing any major issues on the interstates. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, sleep apnea is a very serious issue for a lot of people, men and women alike, but it primarily impacts men. And if you're snoring a lot and your partner has noticed, fellas, I invite you to call Dr. Stephen Pest, Dr. Brian McLaughlin with the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. For those who cannot wear a CPAP machine, if you have mild to moderate sleep apnea, and you already know, did you know there is an FDA-approved oral device that gently supports your jaw? I compare it to a football mouthpiece. I have one in my home because I have sleep apnea. I sleep better. I got more energy. Thank you to Dr. Stephen Pest, Dr. Brian McLaughlin, and the team at the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. By the way, they're in network with BCBS, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, Medicare, and TRICARE for the military. 2 locations to serve you as well, one in Brentwood and the other in Murfreesboro. Go to drposs.com. That's drposs.com for more information about this incredible innovative technology and your ability to sleep better tonight with the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solutions Center. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice. Super Talk 99.7 WT and Matt Murphy and you on the Matt Murphy Radio Show. Thank you for being with us this Thursday afternoon. Sad day across the United States of America. Tragedy. Evil hits New Orleans in a terrorist act. There was a terrorist act happening in Las Vegas as well. Same day. Very different type of activity. We'll dissect both of them coming up a little bit later on in the show, as we've continued to do, taking your telephone calls as well, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWT. And I'm proud to be joined by Cameron Smith. He writes for the Tennessee. By the way, when were you going to tell me that I was Radio Personality of the Year, according to the Tennessean?
Well,
the readers of the Tennessee.
I saw it when somebody else tweeted it out. They don't tell me these things.
Do they not? Do you people over there at the Tennessee, and I say you people.
That's hurtful.
You're on the. Are you not on the editorial
board
am, over there?
And I say I
would
edit
you
things.
would you hit Plazas up and ask him, do I not get a certificate of some sort?
I'll see if you can get a certificate.
I mean, I would think that they would give those out.
They're probably mailing it to the station.
Do you think so?
That would be my guess.
Like one of those big cardboard checks that you get when you win the lottery, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Personality of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this happened, but I was nominated for and then won Radio Personality of the Year, according to the Tennessee.
Well, it's
in Music City, Best of Music City.
Yes, it just means the liberals love you. I don't know, Ray. It's sounding suspicious to me. I don't know.
Of all of the libertarian / conservative jerks out there, I'm their favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's good.
Tim writes in, and I want you to respond to this, because we're talking Mike Johnson and the realities of what we're dealing with here. What do we have, like a 200? I don't know. I don't know how many are actually going to be seated tomorrow, but
so there's going to be, obviously there's 435, but we have 219, and then it will be 220 when Matt Gaetz is replaced. But obviously that's vacant right now.
Right. So you can only lose one and still get the 208. But do you still need 208? Wasn't there some weird thing that we learned during the McCarthy stuff where if
you can basically vote present? And so the way that they count them, and I actually have the CRS report pulled up on my laptop.
Because you're a nerd.
Because I'm a nerd. It says the longstanding practice of the House is that electing a speaker requires a numerical majority of the votes cast by members for a person by name. So it's a roll call vote, and they say Johnson or McCarthy or whatever. And so if somebody says present, they don't count. So
it's like they're not there.
It's like they're not there. Right.
And so that comes off and so for every two of those,
right,
you would lose one needed to get a majority.
Right. So
Because it's a majority of voting members.
Yeah, it is the majority of the members who say a candidate's name, basically. They say the surname of the candidate.
Yeah, but
right.
yeah, okay, yeah. So you could, in theory, it could drop from 218 to like 217 or 216.
Right.
But, you know.
But plan on right out of the bats, Democrats are going to be like, no, we are going to say Jeffries. And so
all of them.
All of them are going to say Jeffries. Massey is going to say somebody else. And then the question is any other Republican going to say anyone else? But
that doesn't mean that Jeffries becomes the speaker.
No.
So Republicans could, what I expect is going to happen tomorrow. Tell me if I'm crazy. Well, I am crazy, but tell me if I'm crazy on this. I expect that there will be a protest vote, first ballot.
Mm-hmm.
I expect Massey will always be a no or a present or whatever. Right. He'll vote for someone else because that's the type of person he is, and that's fine. And by the way, I appreciate that in a lot of ways because Thomas Massey is sick of it. He is absolutely sick of it, and I appreciate
He's right on substance. I'll say that.
So I expect there to be a protest vote, 8, maybe 10 Republicans vote someone else. No one gets a majority. Second ballot, maybe third. They move back over. They've made their protest, and Johnson becomes speaker.
Yeah, the question is, are we going to have two hardtails that are just going to drag it out and drag it out?
Well, then then you're voting against the certification of the President of the United States at that point.
Right. And they are. I mean, they're basically saying, you can't make me. No. And my point is, Trump, if we know anything about Trump, it's that he is a pragmatist in his political engagement. And so the idea that, well, I'm going to hold out because I'm an ideologue and I'm going to hold up Republicans being able to do anything is kind of nuts. We just don't need to play that game. The conservatives against virtually everything are right on substance about spending. It's out of control. We need to rein it in. The question is, can they build a majority to do that? And I think the answer is yes, but you're not going to get the Argentina-style 30% year-over-year cut. It's going to be a little bit over time, and it's going to be a little pain.
You have to eat the elephant in small bites.
Yep.
And I understand that people don't want to do that.
Nope.
But it's just, I get it. I get the frustration. My frustration happens when we seem to capture the three bodies necessary, House, Senate, and presidency, and we still do nothing. We don't stop spending, which has been the last 25 years of our history.
Yeah.
Even when Trump was in office.
Well, Trump's saying get rid of the debt limit. He's saying, I don't want it. Suspend it for 2 years or get rid of it altogether. That's not sending the signal that he's going to reduce spending.
Well, he's saying that in conjunction with we'll be good. We just don't need this hanging over our head. I mean, I think his point is we don't need to be dealing with this every whatever. We just need to deal with the problem. And if we deal with the problem, then that isn't an issue.
Yeah. And then, yes. But come on. I mean,
I get it.
It doesn't inspire my confidence that we're really going to reduce the deficit. And we're at 1.833 trillion in fiscal year 24, and we're just going to be more in 25 if we don't stop. At some point, we have to have incremental progress.
Does it surprise you that the number of people, and maybe we're just hearing from the slim majority, but does it surprise you the number of people, despite the fact that Donald Trump says, hey, I want Mike Johnson to be my Speaker of the House, despite the fact that the one guy that seems to be the voice of the holdouts promoted Ron DeSantis for president of the United States. This is not a Trump guy. Thomas Massey's not a Trump guy.
Correct.
The number of Trump people that are standing with Massey, one would think, as opposed to Trump at this point.
This is the problem with the cave people, is the cave people say, I am righteous, and well, you know what? You're also ineffective. But there are 30 to 40 cave people in Congress who are just going to say no when we get to these high-stakes moments, and they're not persuading anybody. They're not building a majority. I can promise Thomas Massey does not have an alternative person for speaker that he's going to secure. It's not going to happen. So this is just a protest. Basically, I'm mad. I don't like it, and I'm going to make you feel it. And I just think it's pointless.
So Tim writes in and says this, and I think it's a valid point. I'm interested in your thoughts on it. I can't tell you if Mike Johnson will be good or not. Both of your points are well taken, but Cameron needs to put a better definition to cave Republicans. I would say the majority of those that are not rhinos are under the classification of conservatives that vote for traditional Republican values. You can create whatever kind of acronym you want for that. But, quote, cave Republicans are definitely a very small bunch, and I appreciate you including my comment.
Yeah, of course. There's a 30 to 40 cave, right? There's probably about as many in that rhino or in those swing districts in states like New York that are going to be atypical Republicans.
So you're comparing some of these folks to the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes. In the opposite direction.
Right,
Yeah.
sure.
Yes, and the cave Republicans, my issue with them is not that they're wrong on substance. It's they're wrong on tactics. They wait till the high-stakes moment, and then they say no when it's a CR or an omnibus. But they're not there, and I've been in the House. I've watched these guys do it. They're not there figuring out how do we make incremental progress on these individual appropriations bills? How do we get to a yes that moves us in a more conservative direction? The cave people just say no. Well, what do you want? No. We have a CR. It's bad. No.
Well, I mean, and Massey at least has consistency.
He does.
Massey votes against, I mean, even if it cost the federal government zero money, if he doesn't think that it is under the constitutional purview of the United States of America Congress, he votes against it. Yeah. I mean, even some of these like do nothing declarations and things like that, honoring veterans and stuff, he'll vote no.
And that's perfectly fair. I like his consistency there. My point is you got to build a majority. If you want to get people to your way of thinking, we got to persuade. We got to get people in the fold. And a lot of those cave folks are absolutely right, but they convince nobody.
So Tim writes in and says, and I'm going to take some exception with you, Tim, and I invite you to call me because Tim hates cave. The cave is such a horribly unfair acronym. Well, rhino is an unfair statement too. People use rhino when I disagree with you on something. I get called a rhino, and I've never called myself a Republican. So shut up with I mean, you don't like it? Well, stop using the phrase rhino. I mean, and
it's fair, but that was
maybe I'm a little salty because Georgia's losing 13-3.
That probably has something to do with it.
Probably.
Well, but this is kind of my point, and I wrote the column intentionally to do that, right? Because here's what happens. They call you a rhino or call me a rhino when there's something we say that people don't like. Fine. Well, I'm calling conservatives against virtually everything, cave people. I can tell you what I'm talking about. Tell me what you mean by rhino. Because if it's just, well, I don't like them, well, that doesn't really, that's just, that doesn't, I can't work with that.
They don't fit my definition of conservative. Well, what I've said is that Republicans are not by definition conservatives.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No.
Republicans are the new Democrats. I mean, today's Republicans are Democrats from 30 years ago, and today's Democrats are socialists from 30 or 40 years ago.
They're nuts is what they are.
But there's no physical discipline up there. I mean, with the exception of perhaps someone like a Thomas Massey or Paul.
I'm old enough to remember the sequester. When we did this thing where it's like, hey, if y'all can't agree on spending reductions, we're just going to do a flat 10% across everything. And people hated that, and we got rid of it.
All right, Tim has taken me up on my challenge, and I'm so glad that he has. What we're going to do, we're going to take a short time out. It's 10 minutes until the top of the hour. 30-32, you're dead to me. 30-32 just said go Irish for whatever it's worth. I turned it off. I had to turn it off. I got to focus on the show, and frankly, I'm a little salty because of what happened right at the end.
It just so happens that it's halftime.
Oh, is it halftime?
That's why I turned it off.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Oh, there was like 20 seconds to go when I turned it off, and it was 13-3. Do you blame Gunner on that? Is that Gunner's fault?
No,
I blame the offensive line, right, for letting that. Yeah, okay. All right. Enough of that. It's 10 minutes till the top of the hour. Tim, hang in there. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That's a great promo. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. That's a great promo for Nashville's Morning News. And I'll tell you what, I want to promote a store that I love and I believe in, and it's called the Glock Store. It's Matt Murphy for the Glock Store. You know, when I go and train, and I do from time to time, I don't do it enough. I need to do it a lot more, but I head down to the Glock Store and the shoot270.com indoor Ranges where they have their private shooting rooms and personal instructors, not multiple lanes. You know, this is just a different way of doing it. If you've never been to the Glock store, you need to go. I had a state representative contact me and say, hey, I'm thinking about going. Is it what you say it is? I was like, absolutely, it's what I say it is. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it. And here's a great deal for 2025. If you go down and book a session at shoot270.com, you'll get to shoot, at no cost to you, a full auto H&K suppressed MP5 just for mentioning my name, Matt Murphy. Do not say Dan's name. Do not say Chris's name. Say Matt Murphy's name, because I got a little bet going on and I like to win. The right way to train is with a personal instructor in a private shooting room. And after every session, you'll walk out a better, more confident shooter. And in January, you'll experience the thrill of shooting a full auto MP5. So go to shoot270.com for more info. Only at the Glock store. My only place to train is at the Glock store, minutes away from the airport, worth the drive from anywhere. Go to glockstore.com.
Right now, I'm monitoring a story out of Los Angeles where a small plane has crashed into a building in Fullerton, Los Angeles. This has resulted in a 4-alarm fire. You got a massive response from firefighters and first responders. Looks like there were 2 people on board this small plane. I'll try to get as much for you as I can. We've got a standoff in Smyrna right now, and of course, we'll update you on the New Orleans terror attack and the Vegas Cybertruck explosion coming up at 5 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, that's interesting. Yeah, obviously, we're all on high alert. Anything that happens of that nature, and we all go to the same place, right? Our thoughts go to the same place. So we'll monitor that from our studios at Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and I know Ken Weaver's on top of it from News Closet B at Super Talk. 56 after the hour. Tim has answered the call in Hendersonville. He takes exception with this cave nonsense. Tim, the floor is yours, sir. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. I'll start off by saying Happy New Year to both of you and Cameron both.
Yeah, of course.
Happy New Year.
And go Georgia. So
well,
I'll throw that in there too.
We're going home as far as it's worth for right now, but maybe we can get it back in the second half. But yes,
I got you. Well, so yeah, I'm with you on everything that you said up to a certain point, but the cage narrative just really got me.
You don't like being called names?
No, well, I'm not going to claim to be part of that group, but
do you call people rhinos?
I do.
Well, do you think they like it? Do you think they agree with it? Do you think they agree with it?
I've had some that don't disagree with it because they can't. They know they vote with the Democrats.
Voting along with the Democrat, that automatically makes you a rhino?
No, voting with them like 75% of the time. That's what it, on issues that
what Republican has voted with Democrats 75% of the time in Congress?
Oh, these are general complaints.
No. I'm asking. Well, come on, Tim.
And for me, a lot of it's local too. And I'm not going to call out names on some people because
why not?
That would be politically suicidal to do that.
Well, I mean,
but you should stand on it. Right?
I want to be fair to you. So I want to get out of the way, and I don't want to bulldog you. So you take exception with the cave moniker, and I'm not saying that I agree with it. I don't know that it's productive the way that some Republicans are acting in advance of the speaker's vote. However, so I'll give you the floor, Tim. What do you say?
So, Matt, you and I both have had this conversation before about rhinos, and some people throw people into buckets and call them that name all the time. I think things should be taken as a vote per vote type issue, and if they're caught doing it 75% of the time, and they really can't claim to be a conservative in any way because they don't vote with conservative records, then I don't think they should be called a Republican. So I think their name fits in that aspect. Now, when somebody votes against you on a certain issue and you get mad and you call them a rhino, I think it's way overused. You and I both have agreed on that. I think it's ridiculous how much it's used. But by the same token, where I'm very careful with who I would label a rhino, I think saying cave would be the other side of it. I don't think that's fair either.
All right, hold on, Tim, if you can, I hope you can, because I have an appreciation of your perspective, and I love getting the differing perspectives in here, but the music's playing in the background. That means I have to make way for Ken Weaver and the newscast, so hopefully Tim can hang in there. I'm going to force Cameron to do so. I'm Matt Murphy. We're halfway home this Thursday edition of the Matt Murphy Radio Show. This is Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Five o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Bracing for what could be an Arctic blast. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Right now, monitoring a story out of Los Angeles where a small plane has crashed this afternoon. This is in Fullerton, resulting in a 4-alarm fire, triggering a massive response from firefighters and police. This crash reported shortly after 2 o'clock local time there in L.A. A plume of thick black smoke rose into the air above the scene. It was visible for miles. The number of possible injuries not immediately clear. The cause of the crash unknown. At least one report says there were at least 2 people on this plane. Now, here in Tennessee, we've been monitoring a situation in Smyrna where Channel 4 says police were negotiating with someone barricaded inside a home in the area of Avery Park Drive. Now Channel 4 says that person has come out and is in custody. And let's get to the other breaking stories today.
This is a special report from ABC News New Orleans attack. I'm Dave Packer. New Orleans reopening Bourbon Street following the deadly ramming attack killing 14 victims. New Orleans Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick says a group, including the mayor, have paid respects to those who lost their lives.
We gathered in front of the truck. We laid 14 yellow roses down for our 14 victims. And then there was prayer. And then in our culture here in New Orleans is music.
Police fatally shooting the attacker, Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S. military veteran who officials say was inspired by ISIS. President Biden today discussing the ongoing investigation and says they found no information of a connection between this attack in New Orleans and the explosion of a Cybertruck in Las Vegas.
They have not found any evidence of such a connection thus far. I've directed them to keep looking.
This is ABC News.
As far as Vegas is concerned,
moments before the Cybertruck exploded, the man inside, believed by police to have been 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger, killed himself by shooting himself in the head. Las Vegas Sheriff Kevin McMahill says they found a bunch of items in the burned-out Cybertruck.
A military identification. We also found a passport. We found a Desert Eagle 50 caliber semi-automatic pistol.
He says they have found no indication it was linked to the attack in New Orleans or to any terror group.
Here in Nashville, Metro Police say they're reviewing New Orleans to determine whether they need to do anything to make sure something like that never happens here. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, just picked up a multi-vehicle crash. This is going to be 65 southbound, just past Moore's Lane. And then you've got some brake tackman forming on I-24 eastbound. Actually, it starts there on the East Loop downtown and goes all the way down to Briley Parkway before you're getting back up to speed. Starting to back up going eastbound 440. To get over there to 24 and 40 south of downtown. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN 506. Good afternoon. Hope your day's going well. First day of the work week for some. First day of the work year for some. For most, I would suppose, unless you were working yesterday. And if you were, thank you. God bless you for working on New Year's Day. It is the second day of January, this Thursday edition. Halfway home, we appreciate you. Chris Weber's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speaker sounds as good as possible, which is yeoman's work with me behind the microphone. Ken Weaver's back behind the glass in News Closet B, gathering headlines as always. Cameron Smith has graciously appeared for an additional frame of time, however long I deem that you need to be here.
He's locked the door, people. Come rescue me.
Me, I'm Matt Murphy, and I have to deal with this radio show while my football. And I decided to turn the football off. I decided to just turn it off.
Well, good thing, because
did they just score again?
Yep.
Oh
well.
I don't know how.
That's hurtful.
I just saw that they've scored a touchdown. So.
Oh yeah. See, I assume because it said TB says get the Glocks away from Matt. So I don't know what that means. So. Stranger things have happened. I'm just going to keep away from it. Y'all let me know if Georgia does anything good on the super text line, 615-737-9986. I'm just going to stay away from it. This makes for a better radio show because I'm not going to be divided in my attention. If Georgia was winning, that's all I'd be doing.
Well, it could have been worse. You could have been an Alabama fan and lose to a middling Michigan. But don't worry.
Twice in 1 year.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
And don't worry, when you run 3-4 possessions, turn the ball over 3 times in a row. You can't win that way, Matt.
Mm-mm.
And so I just want to thank all of the SEC teams, including Alabama, that have undermined the argument that the SEC is awesome this year.
So we're going to get back to the law enforcement failures of Bourbon Street and New Orleans coming up later on this hour. Also talk about Las Vegas coming up later on this hour. Love your telephone calls on that. We were discussing prior to the top of the hour, your article that's coming out, that's dropping tomorrow in the Tennessean.
Yep.
That you're discussing the Speaker of the House race will be voted on tomorrow, and members of the Republican Party that are kind of digging their heels in against Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. What, in your estimation, I think I know where they're coming from, but what, in your estimation, do these people have against Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House?
Well, it was funding for Ukraine, which is one that a lot of these folks said, no, absolutely not, that he put that bill on the floor. The idea, in theory, was we're going to have all of these individual appropriations bills. There's 12, and I believe the House got through 7 of them, and that we weren't going to do big bulk spending things like a continuing resolution or an omnibus. And that frustrated them. I understand that. We should not do these, but we've done it. That's been our practice.
So I get that level of frustration. I don't think I've been told by many keyboard warriors on social media platforms that Mike Johnson is a liberal. He's a rhino. He's a lot of different things. I don't believe that Mike Johnson individually is any of those things. I think he's a fairly, if you believe in these voting record stats, he's a fairly conservative voting member of Congress. I understand that he's a bit under the gun considering the time constraints that he had at the end of the year. I understand all of the arguments and all of the frustrations completely.
Yep.
I also believe, as Donald Trump does, that we should give him an opportunity to govern with both houses of Congress and a president that's willing to sign some of the bills that the House passed last year. Right, that the Senate refused to take up. So you referred to some of the members that are digging their heels in as cave Republicans. You know that that's intentionally inflammatory.
I do. Conservatives against virtually everything. And the point that I'm trying to make is folks that are conservative and are militantly so will refer to the other kind of Republicans as the rhinos. Republicans in name only. And there's been this, the establishment versus MAGA or all this stuff, whatever. But my point is we got to get on the same page because we're going to play a game that's going to essentially prevent a lot of the conservative things that Trump and the Senate Republicans want to do now that we have all three. If we keep playing this game of purity politics, we won't move in a conservative direction. We won't move at all because folks like Massey are going to say, here's what I need, or I won't support it. And then, so Johnson says, okay, I'll give you this. Now, somebody who's from New York or California who's a Republican says, sorry, I can't go with you, you can call them a rhino, right? That they don't care. They're in a different district with different politics. They say, I can't support that.
And they don't serve based on what you think.
Right.
They serve at the will of the people who vote for them to serve, regardless of what you want to call them.
Right.
All right, so Tim has taken exception with this, and Tim was gracious enough to hold on, and I so appreciate his perspective on all of these things. So, Tim, I hear you saying that this name calling, it's not doing anyone any good.
Yeah, I mean, basically, but so I wanted to defend a little bit about the rhino part, and I think I got that part out before the last commercial break, that some of their the description of them is rightfully so because they vote with Democrats more often than they vote with traditional Republicans. And
such as whom? Like, give me a good example so we can know what you're talking about.
No, listen, all I'm saying is party line issues that should be like conservative fiscally, conservative socially, things on regard with abortion and
like
gender
who,
rights
like who?
that.
I mean,
I'm not going to name a person because
Tim,
I'm not labeling people. That's
Tim,
not what this conversation's about.
No, Tim, hold on. Let's you and I just talk for a second. So, this conversation's all about labeling people. I'm not the one that came up with the rhino label. So,
individuals. I'm not going to name individuals.
Right, but you're describing a rhino, but you can't name one?
I'm just refusing to do that. I'm not going to alienate one person. I want to give them a pass back.
You can name two.
My issue particular was with the cave being conservative against everything. That is not even descriptive of the other side because they're not against everything. They just draw a line on a very few partisan issues, and it seems like the other side has no partisan issues. Therefore, they don't own the name Republican because they don't vote conservatively at all.
All Republicans aren't conservative, though, Tim.
I know, but I'm saying we don't even have a majority of conservative ones, like the ones that vote on party issues that should be party issues. Like in the state house, they say we have a super majority. We have a super majority of Republicans, but there's a whole spectrum of liberal, conservative, moderate. They're all over the board, so it really doesn't.
I mean, I don't know of any liberal Republicans in the
very, very
Tennessee general, but I would agree that there's the spectrum. So here's my exception. Before any of the audience gets frustrated, let me tell you, Tim, and I think you know this. Here's my frustration with this term, rhino. It came out to identify Republicans in really specific, more bluish or purplish districts that sided with, like you say, liberals too often.
Right.
And we didn't care for that.
Like McCain on Affordable Care Act.
Like McCain on Affordable Care. I mean, you can maybe describe Kevin McCarthy as someone that would be a runner. So
correct.
What it became was finger pointing when a fellow Republican voted differently than another Republican or another conservative. And it became a way not to have a conversation, but to shut one down. And that's what I don't like about it. It is the same. Republicans or conservatives use the term rhino in the same way that liberals use the term racist.
I'm with you 100% on that, Matt, and that's where I'm trying to stop labeling people. Look at it per issue. If they rack up enough points to the negative to where you can't tell the difference anymore, that's where they kind of earn the title. But if it's a vote that goes wrong, you don't call that person a rhino just because that vote went wrong. And likewise, I'm criticizing Cameron for doing the same with the virtually everything. They're not against virtually everything. They just have a strong line that they will not cross when it comes to social or fiscal conservatism.
Well,
and that's a fair statement to say they're that.
Then when
virtually everything.
Well, but then what I would encourage, and I find myself in that category, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I draw a line against the concept of public education, for example. I don't talk about it very much because it takes me nowhere, because everybody thinks I'm insane when I say that the government of the United States of America in no capacity should be involved in the education of your children. But, that said, throwing these labels out would advance conversations more so than piling on. I think maybe, I don't want to speak for him, but I think maybe that's the point, is that if we start labeling people as rhinos or cave people, then, I mean, you're getting a little of what you're giving.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit. I mean, he's gone a far way to prove that point, I would say. And if you think Mike Johnson is more conservative than Kevin McCarthy, I will give you that.
He is.
And I would say we would never have a Mike Johnson if it weren't for the people that stood their ground and towed that line on conservatism and said absolutely no to Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, but
those same frustration they finally got to Mike Johnson.
Yeah, those same people now want to throw Mike Johnson over the bus.
You do see that, right? It was McCarthy
started
wasn't
with
good
my
enough, and now Johnson's not good enough, and so we'll never get to good enough. So that's the virtually everything that I'm pointing out.
What I'm saying is there's over 200 people in there that they can pick from, and there may be some little-known people in there that rise up just like a Mike Johnson did. Nobody knew that name, Mike Johnson, until after a lot of frustrating votes. But to my point that I made when I texted in, Matt, about Mike Johnson, I'm not for or against him. He may be the best one to stay there for Trump. So I'm not saying I'm on either side. I just don't like the name calling like you do, but some people do truly earn it over time. It is not a per vote thing. So
we don't like the name calling except for if they really deserve it.
If they have a proven track record for voting with the Democrats 75% of the time, they kind of should label themselves either independent or just going over to the Democratic Party.
Tim, do you think it's fair for me? I mean, we're friends, right? Do you think it's fair for me, considering that you've mentioned this 3 times, to ask you, can you name me a Republican that votes with the Democrats 75% of the time?
Yeah, I said I'm not going to do that.
No. Can you? I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking you, can you?
Yeah, I probably could, but I'm not going to.
Text it to me. I won't share it. Text it to me because I don't think that person exists.
You can't. And
I don't think they exist, Tim. I mean, I'm challenging you. I will not name the name. Text me the name that you think votes with Democrats 75% of the time. I don't think they exist.
So I pulled, just so Tim can know, I pulled like Liz Cheney because she would be somebody you'd think would vote against Republicans a whole lot. She's voting with Republicans on, typically you look at the speaker's vote as the key vote for how Republicans are voting, like 80-something% of the time.
How does she vote on social issues and fiscally conservative issues?
Well, wait a minute.
I'm not talking about every single
You just said 75% of the time, man.
You got
of the
now you're changing. So now you're changing it.
No.
So it's not 75% of the
party.
Okay, so now it's not 75% of the votes. It's 75% of the votes that really matter to you.
That matter for conservative issues.
So wait a minute. Tim, listen to me. Hold on a second. Who decides that? Who decides which votes actually matter and which votes don't actually matter? The same people that call other people rhinos are the ones who decide that.
No, it's the ones that go along party lines.
That's what I'm telling you, though.
Republicans vote with the issues that Republicans typically are very stern on are social conservatism and fiscally conservatism issues. And if those votes don't go along party lines,
well,
they probably shouldn't call themselves a Republican.
Well, let me ask you a question. Here's a question. This American Relief Act, that's what funded the government through March 15th, right? There were 34 Republicans who voted against it and 170 Republicans who voted for it. Who's the true Republican?
Yeah, I can't answer that. I'm not familiar with the votes on that.
Well, I'm telling you, it's 170 Republicans voted to support funding the government through March 15th. 34 voted against it. That's the vote count. And 196 Democrats voted for it, too. So which one is the true Republican? The 170 or the 34?
The ones that held held the line for fiscal conservatism would be the 34, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
That's the ones I would say are true conservatives.
Okay. So that means Trump's not a conservative?
I think he's a populist to some extent.
I
think he's doing a lot better than what the alternatives were.
Well, he would be with the 170.
Man running. He's the most conservative man running. Were there more conservative people running for president? Yes. Could they win? No.
All right, so, Tim, I love the conversation, and I appreciate your perspective and your willingness to share. So, final question for you. Who's the most conservative person running for Speaker of the House?
I don't know any of that are running, and that's why I said Mike Johnson may be the guy to stay there.
Well, Mike Johnson's the only Republican running for Speaker of the House.
Okay, that's why I'm not arguing with him.
No, that's all good. Look, I appreciate it. I agree with you. I think Cameron is being intentional. And by the way, Tim, I do agree with you. I think Cameron's being intentionally inflammatory, and he's being a big jerk.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, Tim. No, look, I'm
sincerely glad that Tim knows that this is kind of the firing zone.
But this is the conversation that we wanted to have because Tim is who I would consider one of those cave people. Why? Because he couldn't tell me the specific. It just wasn't good enough. It was, I can't tell you who's a rhino, but they definitely exist. But none of these cave people exist.
I think in his defense, and I will defend Tim because I know him, he is frustrated with people running as Republicans and using the cloak of republicanism to pretend to be conservative.
Sure. Amen. Let's win more elections.
He's sick of that.
Yeah.
And so he feels like, and I think many people who are listening right now feel like a lot of Republicans run as Republicans and pretend to be conservatives when they're running.
Yep.
And then when they serve in office, then they back off of that. Now, your point is well taken, that a lot of times they back off of that because you got to govern. And like my grandpa used to say, half of something is better than all of nothing.
Yes. And here's the problem is I agree with the cave people. I am somebody who says, oh, no, on principle, you're absolutely right. Our spending is a train wreck. All this stuff is bad. My disagreement is what's the game plan to get us to where you are, to get us to right? Like, let's do that versus just saying no and pouting and then going on social media and saying how we're the true conservatives. And meanwhile, the vast majority of Republicans are deplorables.
All right, we're going to talk about New Orleans, Louisiana here in just a moment. Cameron will either be with us or not. His column will be out tomorrow. Because Georgia's losing so badly, I don't need you anymore.
Thank you, my friend. You're delightful.
I'm just grumpy. I'm salty.
I understand it.
I'm very apologetic about it, too. It's 23 after the hour at Super Talk. Hello, friends. When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of people don't want to see what they see. That would be the warning signs of your home settling or sinking or your concrete cracking. What you need the experts to come out and give you an analysis. That's where USS comes in. USS stands for United Structural Systems. And when they come to your home, you're getting problem solvers who provide peace of mind to their customers, the homeowner. You're not getting somebody that's trying to upsell you on anything. You're getting someone who's diagnosing your situation. And if you've noticed the telltale signs, like doors sticking, windows sticking, maybe a musty or moldy smell in the basement or crawl space, it's time to call USS. Simply put, homeowners trust USS. They've been keeping homes stable and dry since 1994. That's a long time doing what they do. They guarantee their best in Middle Tennessee. Call them today at 615-488-7855, 488-7855, or go to USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com. And when you do, tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only USS.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
There is a hole in a building in Fullerton, California, where a small plane crashed. Unknown number of casualties. New Orleans, terrorist attack, and Vegas Cybertruck explosion updates. All of this and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I have another update that Ken Weaver's not getting to. He's getting to the big stuff. I have for those interested, for you Notre Dame fans in the listening audience, it is apparently 20-10. I'm not watching. I'm getting updates from the Super Text line and from Chris Webber. So it is 20-10 now. The Bulldogs scored. Obviously, what went down there?
Nice little touchdown catch by Cash Jones,
okay,
who stumbled and bumbled into the end zone.
And it's my understanding Notre Dame ran the kickoff back. That was their second half touchdown.
Okay, I assumed it was. I did not get to see it. I just saw the score pop up.
All right. So normally Georgia's defense is a crackerjack in the second half, so they're going to have to be if they are going to pull out a victory. 10 points down, somewhere in the third quarter. I'll get to Kevin and line 3 in just a moment, but I want to ask you this because we've not gotten to it. What, if anything, can be done? I mean, I think there were some clear failures on hindsight in New Orleans. I think we're going to learn that signs were missed in the radicalization of this former Army veteran. But hindsight's always 20/20 in those things.
Yeah, of course.
What, if anything, can be gleaned 38, 40 hours after this event?
Man, I mean, this one hits close to home. One, I'm on the board of a conservative think tank in New Orleans, and this is where I was last year. I was watching the Sugar Bowl with my wife, and we were on New Year's. We said, let's do Bourbon Street.
Let's go to yeah.
And it was insane, but I mean, literally.
It just gave me chills.
There's so many, like.
It just gave me chills.
We were 1 year away from that. And so
just two people out having a hurricane or whatever.
Right out.
Enjoying your life.
And then this
75 miles an hour. I don't mean to get in front of your point, but what you just said just gave me chills because I saw the video of this is how delicate the balance between life and death is. There's a video, and it's not for the faint of heart, of that truck screaming down, and there are 3 people standing in the middle of Bourbon Street. And I don't know if they were together or not. I assume they were. 2 of those people, when they saw the truck, all 3 of them see the truck. In the blink of an eye, the truck's on them.
Right.
2 of those people run to the left. 1 of those people runs straight forward. The 2 people that ran to the left are alive.
Right.
In the blink of an eye.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, to me, the roughest part of all of this is, one, we got to look to the victims. I think there's 15 now.
14 or 15.
That have died as a result of this attack. I mean, those families, they're changed forever. I mean, young people, old people, everybody. And it is, I mean, a shop of horrors for them. But when we're looking at this, we want to say, oh, we could clearly prevent this or that. When somebody's inspired by the Islamic State,
right?
In America, we can't arrest people for saying they like bad things. right? We can say you're looking at this or that, but I mean, this is where the libertarian thing kind of comes in is, okay, well, should we have the ability to government to look at your computer searches when you've committed no crime?
Hold your thought on this. I'm going to need, we need to break this down because it goes back to the point I made at the beginning of the show. And that is in America, we live in a society where these things happen.
Yes.
Necessarily. 31 after the hour, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now in Los Angeles, an active search for victims is happening in Fullerton. This is where a plane went into a building at the end of a runway there at the airport. There's a large warehouse building with a hole in the roof, smoke pouring out of it. And that is where that plane went into the building, where some reports of people getting burned. Fullerton police saying casualties are unknown. Evacuations are underway. Elsewhere in our world today.
This is a special report from ABC News New Orleans attack. I'm Dave Packer. Bourbon Street is reopened after the New Year's Day attack in New Orleans, and it's now believed the killer acted alone.
In a dramatic about-face, investigators now believe the man who drove a pickup truck into a crowd of New Year's Eve celebrants on Bourbon Street did not have an accomplice. But FBI Deputy Assistant Director Christopher Reyes says,
What I can tell you right now is that he was 100% inspired by ISIS.
which accounts for the black ISIS flag flying from his rented pickup truck as Shamsuddin Jabbar plowed into a crowd of people before he was shot dead by police. Jim Ryan, ABC News, New Orleans.
Today, more than 1,000 law enforcement officers poring over data, including surveillance, interviews, and video posted online. The FBI says Jabbar drove from Houston to New Orleans on Tuesday evening and posted several videos proclaiming his support for ISIS and mentioning he joined ISIS before this summer. This is ABC News.
As of now, police in Las Vegas say they see no indication that the explosion of the cyber truck there in front of Trump International Hotel was linked to the attack in New Orleans. But they acknowledge the similarities and say the investigation is still very, very early. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, Cool Springs got a crash blocking the left lane of 65 southbound there at Moores Lane. Then a crash on Thompson Lane at Nolensville Pike. In Antioch, got a crash reported by police. It's going to be on Bell Road just west of I-24. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
PAI Medical, better known as We Grow Hair, wants to talk to you men in 2025. Let's discuss. Hey, it's Matt Murphy. Did you know, and I learned this from the We Grow Hair folks, that you can lose up to 50% of your hair before you notice that it's going away? My hair was thinning around the crown of my head, and I wanted to do something about it after I learned about this from the We Grow Hair people. And I called them, and I talked to them about it, and they said they have an FDA-approved laser treatment that I went through. It's not invasive. It's incredible. It makes your hair thicker and fuller. You prevent further hair loss as a result. So if you're just beginning to lose your hair, or even if you've been losing your hair for a time, We Grow Hair is the only clinic in Nashville with all of the proving medical solutions and their trademarked procedure, the multi-unit hair grafting procedure, and the ARTIS robotic FUE transplant procedure. Results are guaranteed. Let me say it again. Results are guaranteed. Call We Grow Hair for a free consultation. Learn more about their affordable financing options. 615-376-6010, 376-6010, or go to WeGrowHair.com. Once again, tell them I sent you, WeGrowHair.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
I'm sorry, Weber. What am I supposed to do? I can't help myself.
I know it.
Matt Murphy's excited, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I mean, that one, you needed that one. I mean, I shouldn't do this. I should avoid this at all. Should I do this? Should I explain to people what I'm talking about?
Yes. They need to know.
I think they know what you're talking about.
So, I mean, Georgia's down by 10. Notre Dame right at midfield was 4th and 1. They went for it on 4th and 1, and they did not get the first down. So it's Georgia's ball. Down by 10 in somewhere in the third quarter. No. So there you go.
Well,
I promised that I wouldn't do play-by-play of this game. And I just did some play-by-play of this game.
Well, it was quick.
Let me go to a couple of callers. Cameron's gracious with his time, although I've demanded he stay and dismissed him on multiple occasions based on the whims of this football game. But I'm appreciative of him hanging around with us. Kevin is next in Bellevue to talk about the situation in NOLA. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm great, Kevin. Thank you for calling.
Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Well, I've got a little bit of a personal connection to all that because I had some family members, cousins that went to New Orleans, and I have a cousin that was injured in that whole crash. But he wasn't injured by the vehicle. It was another person's body that was flying through the air that hit him.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my
and
goodness.
injured him. Yes. Yeah. Horrific. Yeah.
That is horrific.
A broken collarbone, a head injury. Like, it was horrific. Like, I just heard about it yesterday from family members, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? He's like, no. But, like, just to point out the fact that, like, you might not be hit by the vehicle or by, like, anything, but, like when you plow through a crowd of people are going to go flying. And that's how he got injured. So he's luckily a broken collarbone, a head injury, a broken leg. I think he had a fractured arm. And, like, they're going to release him in a couple of days, and he's in Baton Rouge.
You said this is a friend of yours?
No, it's a cousin of mine.
Oh, a cousin of yours. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a cousin of mine. Yeah, a cousin of mine. He's a third cousin, but, like, I heard it from his mother, and, like, luckily his friends weren't injured, but he was. Family. I couldn't believe it. It was just.
Yeah, I mean,
but he literally. somebody else. Like, I don't know the body that was thrown towards him that hurt him. I don't know what their state is. I mean, like, those are the kinds of things that, like, just blow your mind. Like, you never know, like, in an instant like that, like, how things could just change in a second.
Well, I mean, I feel you. Let us know how your cousin is, Kevin. Would you do that? Would you call us back? I mean, obviously, I mean, those types. I mean, you forget, and we shouldn't forget. We focus on the 14 people that lost their lives, but there were a lot of people that were injured as a result of this horrific terrorist act as well. And God bless you, Kevin, and God bless your family. Let us know how your cousin's doing. James is next in Nashville. Hello, James. Good afternoon.
Hello. I just want to distinguish between the whole rhino thing. I think what people are really, really, really sick of is the neocon element of the party. And that would be, and we can name neocons all day long. Heck, we could start with the Frist family right here in Nashville if we want to. But, I mean, you got the whole Bushes and all this other stuff. I think
What
everybody
do you mean by that?
Party,
Like, what does neocon mean? Like, for the audience, like, help me out with that one.
Oh, this is a definition they came up with on their own. Neoconservative.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Which, who knows what it means? It's some buzzword. It probably did well with a focus group somewhere. Oh, it sounds conservative, so let's call ourselves neoconservatives.
Like new conservative.
Means absolutely. Yeah, it means absolutely nothing.
So how do you identify them?
Well, they're typically warmongers.
Okay.
They will be more aligned with the corporate interest of the corporate states of America rather than the actual people in their constituencies. They don't. I mean, they'll go to war just to make their buddies in the weapons industries rich.
Lindsey Graham, Nikki Haley,
Bingo.
Dick Cheney.
Bingo.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
so it's interesting because we were talking, Cameron and I were talking about this off air about our ridiculous budget, the fact that we are, over $1 trillion over budget annually in America, and nobody seems to figure out what to do about it. Doge can find all the millions of dollars that they want to find, but until you start finding billions and billions and billions of dollars, we're not going to solve the debt crisis. And one of the things that nobody seems to want to touch is the military budget. The military the Department of Defense has failed 7 audits in a row. 7 audits in a row, meaning they cannot account for where the money that they get goes. And yet they were budgeted I just looked it up, $876 billion last year. $876 billion. And so the question is, are we effectively, I'm not against a robust and strong military, but are we effectively using that money, or are we paying a bunch of defense contractors to build stuff and then paying them for the stuff that they built?
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. So
right.
Let's be clear about that.
I mean, James, you probably know this better than anybody. And Cameron elucidated this during the break, and I don't want to take credit for it, that we literally pay defense contractors to create a product, and then we pay for the product. And that doesn't make any sense. I think we left James speechless.
Yeah, it happens.
Well, James, love you, buddy. Thank you for the call. I mean, right? I mean, that doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, if you are not auditable, if we cannot look at how you're spending your money and report to the people whose money it is, the American taxpayer, that you're doing this properly, that's an issue, and that says nothing about how we feel about the military. But that's the game, right? Is if you question defense spending, then you must hate the military. And that's a non sequitur, but that's how basically the military industrial complex defends itself.
Right. And I as a small L libertarian would suggest, if you can't account for your money, then we need to stop giving you money until you can account for it.
Yeah. Well, but then how are we going to defend ourselves?
Right. And there you go. And there's the circular law.
Forever.
I mean, I'm not here for sacred cows, man. I'm here to put them in the grinder. I mean, let's turn them into meat. I mean, there are no sacred cows, especially when it comes to a budget that will destroy the United States. at some point the United States will cease to exist because of the weight of our debt.
True story for you. I was working for Gary Palmer, running the House Republican Policy Committee, and I was talking to staff leaders at House Armed Services Committee. And I said, guys, look, we could probably save some money here. These are some basic efficiency things we could do. Why don't we do that, and then we can save some money? And their response was no. And I said, what do you mean no? Well, if we find some efficiencies, we need to spend it so that we don't reduce spending levels. So, well, but if we don't have to spend the money because we're more efficient, we could not spend it, right? No, you're not hearing us. We have spending levels that we want to spend so we don't cut anything. So if we get more efficient, we just have to spend it. To which I said, what? And this was Republican staff. This was Democrats.
Right.
And Democrats, I promise you, would say very similar things about different programs.
I mean, that's what we call the establishment in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
The bureaucratic state in Washington, D.C. That's what, I think when people are asking Donald Trump to drain the swamp, when they want Donald Trump to go and fix what is wrong, this is part of what they're talking about. They're talking about these government inefficiencies, government doing things which has no basis in constitutional reality, and the bureaucracy existing for the bureaucracy's sake.
Yeah, and let me put a finer point on it. That's the Defense Protectorate, and different constituencies have them in Washington. And how it works is, well, I'm going to protect this spending, and then someday you're going to hire me when I leave Capitol Hill, and I'll go to work for one of these big defensive contractors, and then I'll convince the staff that they need to do the same thing, and this cycle will perpetually continue. It's a problem.
A lot of folks weighing in on the super text line, like 5668 says, wow, it looks like Cameron lost some weight and grew lots of hair.
Both are true.
Did you grow hair?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you got the top came out.
I need to get a haircut.
You
shaved the beard, but it comes back.
You did lose some weight. Bunch of weight.
So
looking good.
I lost we're about 45 pounds down, and I was so fat that I got stuck in a cave that I was playing in with the boys, and there was this piece. It's basically far back in the cave, a massive piece of limestone on top and one on bottom, and you got to just squeeze through army crawl style. And I was so afraid I was going to get stuck, lost all the weight, went back a year later, squeezed through it, made it through.
Are you telling a spelunking story right now?
I am. Just for you.
I don't appreciate it.
I made it through, though.
Good for you.
Big deal for my boys. Terrifying. Oh, terrifying.
They used to call some of the there's some places up in North Georgia and maybe parts of Tennessee where you would go through these little area. They call it Fat Man Squeeze or something like that.
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah.
And my
except underground.
I have a son who is neither claustrophobic nor big. He is very fit, very lean, and he's just climbing through all these tunnels, like jamming through, and I'm just like, I'm here for you, but I can't breathe.
Where are you at on underground exploration, Weber?
Yeah, I'm for it. I like it.
You in there?
I could do that.
You for that? Is Weaver back there? I can't see you. No?
I'm right here, Brother Murphy.
Ken Weaver, where are you on the issue of underground exploration, caving, spelunking?
If I don't think about it, I'm okay. But if I start thinking about it, I will have a panic attack.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm out. I don't consider myself claustrophobic, but I don't like going places that I don't know where it's leading. I just don't. I don't like going somewhere. Well, like that could just lead to a bunch of nothing.
Yeah, we found this cave, and that's literally what we've been doing is chasing down all the tunnels to see where they go.
No, you get lost.
No, sir.
Have y'all ever tried? Yeah, and I think part of it is, have y'all read the story about the guy that got permanently stuck and died?
No.
This was, gosh, I'll have to look it up, but it's a true story about a well-traveled cave that actually got shut down for these very reasons because there were so many little offshoots. Right. And then the people that explored the cave, I want to say Utah, somewhere out west, they lobbied to have the cave opened back up again. And eventually the government said, okay, fine, we'll open it back up. They opened it back up, and this group of people, there was 10 people that did this, were going in this particular thing, and it was called like the birth canal, is what you can look up the birth canal and you can find this story. It was called the birth canal because it got really tight, like you're talking about, and then it opened up on the other side. Well, this guy thought he was going through the birth canal. He actually went a wrong way, and he went in such a way head first where he went upside down and was stuck. And and they couldn't get him out.
No way,
No.
man.
No, so he's upside down. They couldn't get him out. No, rescue. He died. I'm not making this story up. He died like 28 hours later. Had a heart attack because they actually devised a pulley and winch system. It took them like 10 hours. Rescue crews, official like real deal rescue in the. They were winching him up. They got him up like 2 feet. The winch snapped and it went back down in there and wedged him so hard he died.
Oh man.
Yeah, pardon me. But enjoy your spelunking, Cameron.
I mean, I'm squeezing through. They're like, Dad, you went through that passage really fast. And I'm like, because I stopped. I looked, kidding. I stopped and I looked and I saw an animal job on. I'm like, that animal got stuck. It was smaller than me. And I was going, man.
I watch too much spooky crap. I don't like dark places.
Well, this is cool because we found this cave that had been lost near us. And it had like etchings from like 1821. Like,
oh, that's cool.
Really old people with their names and like people that had apparently gone there to smoke weed for a long time, drink alcohol, and hide from the cows.
Just a brief update on this, just to make sure everybody knows I'm not lying. It is actually called the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah County, Utah. It was known for being difficult to navigate. The birth canal is about 400 feet from the cave's entrance. It was only about 10 by 18 inches. This fella did not, his name was John Jones. He took a wrong turn in November of 2009, and they left him there. I don't mean to be too graphic, but they felt it was necessary to just seal up the cave and make that his burial site, because otherwise what they needed to do to remove him would have been worse.
That's fair.
If that makes any sense. Yeah, so I don't go caving. But happy caving to all of you who do.
If any of y'all have caves that need to be explored,
call Cameron.
I've got spare boys that are like, let's go.
Don't call me. I think Weaver might be a little non-committal on it.
My wife gave me a rope and was like, just tie the rope to them. That way, if they get too far, you just pull on the rope and they come back.
Steve, we'll get to you next. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Now, listen, I've got exciting news for you. For many of you who lived here for a long time, you already know that Eurofix has been in the Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs for 26 years. 26 years. That's a long, long time for Aaron Stokes and his crew. Now, we've all gotten to watch them grow, and I don't know about you, but I love watching this hometown business grow like it has. Well, now we are proud to announce their 5th location right there in Mount Juliet. I see it often as I pass by right across the street from Dairy Queen. It's Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road. Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch this small-town mechanic grow from his barn in his backyard to in his single-wide trailer to 5 separate locations, repairing thousands of cars every month because they do it the right way. Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myeurofix.com.
Small plane crash into a warehouse in California. Unknown number of casualties. New Orleans terrorist attack update. Vegas Cybertruck bombing update. All that and more coming up at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, thank you much, Mr. Ken Weaver. We've got only a minute or so before we'll get to that top of the hour newscast. Steve, hang in there in Hendersonville. We'll get to you first up on the phone lines. I love talking to folks on the phones, and I just open them up all 4 hours. I'm kind of different in that way, but that sometimes necessitates a little more patience on the phone lines. I appreciate you, Steve. Speaking of appreciating folks, I appreciate all of you on the Super Text line, whether you're lovers or haters. A lot of you responding to our cave talk. I got lost in a cave when I was 18 with my cousin for 12 hours. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yikes.
5042, they were eating more hashish than smoking pot. Well, maybe. And then this one, Scott says, do not Google the birth canal at work, even if you're looking for caves.
That is true.
That's well said, Scott. One more hour to go on Super Talk.
Six o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Tracking another Arctic blast headed toward Middle Tennessee. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. New Orleans terrorist attack, full report in a moment. But let's check in with Alex Stone. He's covering an active search for victims right now in Fullerton, California, where a plane went into a building.
At the end of a runway near the airport in Fullerton, there's a large warehouse building with a hole in the roof and smoke coming out of the hole. That's where a plane went down into the building. There were some reports of burn victims. Fullerton police telling us casualties are unknown. Evacuations are underway.
Stay with Super Talk 99.7 WTN for updates there on the situation in Southern California.
This is a special report from ABC News, New Orleans attack. I'm Dave Packer. He was 100% inspired by ISIS. That from FBI Deputy Assistant Director Christopher Rhea today, describing the man who rammed a pickup truck through New Year's revelers early yesterday morning on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing 14 people before he was shot dead by police.
The suspect in New Orleans is believed to have acted alone, the FBI said today. It's based in part on their reviews of phones, laptops, social media, and interviews with those who knew him. The suspect also uploaded 5 videos to social media before that attack, where he discussed another possible plan. Olivia Rubin, ABC News, Washington.
As New Orleans mourns some signs of healing, Bourbon Street reopened today. Music again in the air. And the Sugar Bowl, postponed from yesterday, is being played today at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. This is ABC News.
As for the Vegas Cybertruck bombing, the FBI has said there's no confirmed link between the two, but Sheriff Kevin McCahill in Las Vegas pointing out what he said were similarities. Both suspects serving at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, though there is no indication they were there at the same time with the same unit. Both suspects also turning to the Apturo.
If these turned out to be simply similarities, very strange similarities to have. And so we're not prepared to rule in or rule out anything at this point.
Yeah, they use the same app to rent their trucks. School resource officers will not be required to report a student's immigration status under a bill filed by Chattanooga Republican State Senator Todd Gardenhire. He tells News 2.
Almost everybody in the Senate knows where my heart is on the issue of children. And I think it can be done. And if it doesn't, I'll come back next year and do the same thing.
Gardenhire's bill amends a law passed last year that does require police notify federal agencies of a person's immigration status no matter their age. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Smyrna got a crash blocking the right 2 lanes, 24 eastbound, right before Sam Ridley Parkway. In Antioch, a crash, Bell Road, west of I-24. Nolensville Pike and Haywood Lane, police on the scene of a crash. And in Brentwood, a crash partially blocking the on-ramp, 65 northbound from Old Hickory Boulevard south. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is the Matt Murphy Show, final hour, this Thursday edition. Thank you for being around with us. I appreciate all of your time this afternoon. Hope your drive home is going well, if that's what you be doing. Maybe you're already at home at your place of business. Wherever you might be listening to our show and this radio station, we thank you. We're very appreciative of that. 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986, either via the phone lines, which are always open, or the super text line, which is also open as we speak. Steve's been holding on the phone lines. Before I go to Steve, thank you to Chris Weber from Behind the Glass, controlling the experience. Thank you to Ken Weaver for making our day go by a little bit better with the breaking news items. And thank you to Cameron Smith for spending some time with us this afternoon.
You're
Hello,
welcome.
Cameron. Yeah,
You're very welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you bringing up the spelunking, too. Do you do that often?
I try not to.
Mm-hmm.
But the middle beast loves it. I'm talking like a fish in water. He's going down these different tubes. He's in one that couldn't be, it's got to be 24 inches wide. It is narrow. And he's like, it's getting kind of wet in here.
Oh, yeah.
Like, well, there's a spring that's feeding into this cave. You might want to be careful.
I mean, I told the story of the birth canal. The story of the kids that went to the thing and then the rains came and then they were stuck and they had to drug them to get them out?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No, but.
You don't? This was like in Argentina or Venezuela or somewhere.
Yeah, I remember the one
like
in South America that they got stuck in a cave.
Well, there was one where, they were going through this cave system and I'll probably have details wrong, so I apologize, but I think my memory's good enough to tell the story that they went into a particular area that they were told not to go during the flood season. And they went, and then the floods came, and they
got stuck.
They were in there, and they were like camping overnight. That's how big of a cave system it was. And then they got stuck, and then where they were, there was a bunch of water between where they were, and it was going to stay there. And so they had to, the divers had to come in and, drug them to get them out. They had to drug them so that they could...
Oh, so they didn't panic or anything.
So they didn't freak out while they're going underwater. Anyway, on that happy note...
Yeah.
Spelunk away, everybody. I'm not going. Steve is next in Hendersonville. He's held for some time. Steve, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours, sir. How are you?
Hey, good. Good, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing
strong libertarian as well here. Been so quite a long time. Definitely don't like the idea of having all my decisions come from a hard partisan line. And so also have an issue with the rhino situation. Just had a question to bring this to light and make sure. Back during the state Senate races, during the state Senate primaries, I believe, if I remember correctly, you were a big supporter of Chris Spencer.
I didn't declare. I don't endorse candidates, but I had Chris Spencer on multiple occasions. I supported Chris Spencer in as much as the other guy. What's the other guy's name? Feckless Farrell Hale. Farrell Hale refused to come on my show. I invited him on multiple occasions. I made multiple telephone calls to his cell phone. He refused to even call me back to say no. And with that in mind, I supported Chris Spencer.
Okay, well, and that's no animosity, and that's your everybody's got their prerogative. It sounds like you have a similar mindset of like, I don't understand this whole rhino thing, and you believe you made the statement that you don't even think that exists, that 75% vote thing or whatever. But just to make sure everybody understands, like, that was his whole core platform, is attacking quote unquote rhinos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was his whole thing. So I mean, I listened to several shows where Chris Spencer was featured so much here. I love your show. I listen to it all the time. He was on there several times, and he was given a wide platform to put out his message. But I mean, that was his whole core platform was, we're taking the rhinos of the world on. So if you weren't aware of that, I want to make sure that you knew that. So
well, I'm aware that, I mean, his platform was about more than just, I mean, I understand that he called Farrell Hale a rhino. Sure. I mean, he's
a founding member.
I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's a founding member of the Sumner County Constitutional Republicans. They have a website dedicated to attacking rhinos.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it is a core.
Right.
Platform.
So I don't speak for Chris Spencer. I speak for me. I don't declare people as rhinos. I don't use the term. What Chris Spencer does is, I mean, my main issue in that race was twofold. One, Farrell Hale was being accused of passing legislation that would give better ability for children to have transgender surgeries or transgender procedures in the state of Tennessee. I don't know if that's true or not. Here's why. Because Farrell Hale refused to even bother to call me back to answer questions on the matter. And a politician that won't call constituencies back about issues like that is no politician for me.
That seems reasonable.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
Okay. It's fair in the aspect that somehow we've turned from talking about Chris Spencer's core platform being about rhinos to now.
What I recall, but I just, I mean, I understand that Chris Spencer, I understand that Spencer referred to Farrell Hale as a rhino. His central,
right.
The central, hold on, Steve. My central memory of that political campaign was his accusation that Farrell Hale made it easier for young people to get transgender procedures in the state of Tennessee. That was the central piece of Chris Spencer's campaign. Is that not fair?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
And when I called Farrell Hale to ask him to respond to these allegations, he refused to give me the time of day.
Okay. Is it also fair to say that that's a core message of?
Yes, and I disagree with it.
That organization, that there are all these rhinos out here, and we're out to take them down.
I disagree with the premise that you call. I disagree with the entire premise of calling people rhinos because they don't vote like you want them to vote or whatever. That's not But he ran advertisements, and every advertisement that I ever saw, he referred to Farrell Hale as a rhino. So that's sure,
and many other many other politicians. So I mean,
there are a lot of courageous rhino hunters out there who just that's their jam. Is we're going to go get. And my big issue with this is the problem is not typically your rank and file Republicans. The problem is you don't have enough folks that will do the conservative things, and so that's what we need to be focused on. Is what are the outcomes, not what are the labels that we apply. Because I'll even say like the cave person label, the conservatives against virtually everything. I'm just throwing that out there as a counterpoint of if we're going to fight each other, we're not going to make much progress because the Democrats are sitting over there looking at it and saying, well, we're perfectly fine for you guys making a spectacle out of each other. And
absolutely.
So I'm against anything that distracts us from reigning in government, limiting the reach of government into our lives, and making sure people are personally accountable.
Toxic politics, and that's what was being engaged in. I mean, that's what I witnessed being engaged in, and I agree with you. That's what I'm against. It's just toxic. It's just toxic politics. You're just going to destroy each other in the name of trying to name call. So.
Well, and Chris Spencer had a good amount of money behind him and a good amount of celebrity behind him, and what he got 40% of the vote, something like that.
I don't think it was quite 40, but
yeah, I mean thereabouts.
But I mean, we
lost.
have there's a conservative guy, he who shall not be named, who is from one of these conservative organizations, and his favorite thing to do is attack Republicans. That's literally what some of these groups do. Is we're going to attack Republicans. We're going to constantly just undermine everything in order to promote ourselves rather than actually reining in government, which is what I want to see Republicans do.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate the telephone call. 15 minutes after the hour, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You're welcome to give us a call as well. Look, I don't endorse politicians. I'll support and tell you who I would vote for in particular races if people ask. I appreciated the fact that Chris Spencer was willing to come on the show when asked and elucidate and eloquently,
make his case
on his position on issues. Yeah, I mean his political campaign surrounded the use of the term rhino, and I don't necessarily disagree pointing out that some Republicans use the term to suggest that they are conservatives. I just think it's an overused term for Republicans to go after other Republicans. I don't know.
It is. I don't like you. It's I don't like you, and so you're a rhino. You're bad. Therefore, I don't have to talk to you, and everything you say doesn't count.
Well, and it's what it suggests to me, and I think I'm a fierce individualist, right? I don't belong to Club Republican. I don't belong to Club Libertarian. I don't belong to any club that would have me as a member. So I don't belong to Club anybody. I'm Matt. I'm an individual. I'm a fierce individualist when it comes to this. And the term itself suggests that you get to decide what a Republican is, and only you. Like, you're a Republican in name only. Well, why? Because you don't agree with me on everything. Well, do you define what a Republican is? Or do the voters define what a Republican is? Because voters in California define what they think Republicans are.
Well, so
and it's a lot different than what Tennessee voters define.
So you make
as
a good point. So we talked about that spending measure, right, that funded the government, that was all the latest rage. There are 34 Republicans versus 170. So if you've got a large majority of Republicans saying this is what Republicans do, why are the 34 not Republicans in name only? I mean, if we're going to play these type of games, and I'm just saying
because
it's unhelpful.
they're interweaving what it means to be a conservative versus what the club defines. Right. And I'm not a part of the club, so I don't define what a Republican is.
Agreed.
And so I'm not even a part of the fight.
You know how we define these things? We vote.
By votes.
That is just how we do it. And I think the real problem here is that you got a lot of conservatives, real conservatives, saying we want to do better. I agree. You got to win more elections. You got to put up candidates that want to endure the fiscal pain of actual conservatism. And right now, you got 30 to 40 people that will do that, but you don't have a majority.
Well, and a lot of people that are uber physically conservative, and I would say that I am in that number, we're very frustrated with the lack of uber physically conservative people in Washington, D.C. And so if that's what Thomas Massey's saying, then I'm right there with him. I'm all about it.
Right. And then now what?
Danny is next. Maybe he's got a now what. Hey, Danny, how are you?
Good evening, gentlemen. I got a little bit of, I don't know. This kind of ties in. Okay, all the politicians, I'll just lump them together. They all got to have, there's a problem and stuff. So they have to fix it for us and lull us into that sense of security that they'll fix it for us. And that's another thing. We've had such a false sense of security here in the United States for so doggone long that we're not realizing what's going on with the open borders and stuff and what's happening. We're fixing to get hit, I'm afraid. And there's going to be a lot going on. And we were talking about keeping you can't be hypervigilant all the time. You got to rest sometime.
Yep.
But there have been many situations I've been in. You keep your head on a swivel. Now, your friends are going to think, man, why don't you just relax or something? And when you're out in public, out around crowds, you got to kind of keep an eye on things. There's been many times I've been thanked later for drawing attention and getting us out of the situation before something happened. I can't say terrorist situation or anything like that. I haven't been in one of those. But there have been some situations. And then I've actually been thanked later by people they felt safer when I had been around them earlier in their life because I kept my head on a swivel and paid attention to what's going on. And we all got to do that a little bit, and you can't just rely on one person to do it for every 100 or 1,000 or like law enforcement is. Every civilian has to do it, and times are changing, and we really got to keep an eye on it. We've got this false sense of security, and it's very false. And that's my main thing I want to say. And the government, everything that's going on, they're trying to lull us into that. So we'll keep that frame of mind. And that's all I got to say.
Well, thank you, Danny, for saying it. And look, we live in a day and age where I think a lot of people, because of social media platforms, because we are so intimately tuned in to what's happening in Washington, D.C. on a moment-by-moment basis, I think a lot of people earnestly and honestly want to affect real change right now.
Yep.
And we are in I'll give you an example that is away from the physical discussion or the rhino discussion, illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
When Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th president of the United States and Tom Homan becomes the immigration czar or illegal immigration or whatever we want to call it, border czar, you're going to see some pretty immediate impact. You're going to see a concerted effort to get the border under control.
Yep.
You're going to see a concerted effort to move into areas where there's large amounts of illegal alien gang activity and that sort of thing. But I don't believe, and perhaps I'm wrong, that overnight you're going to see an impactful removal of people. Are you going to see deportations? Of course you are.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to see deportation of people that have been here 25 years? I don't think you're going to see that. And part of it is because we walked ourselves into this situation over the last 40 years, and we should not, as voters, expect that we're going to be magically taken out of it in the span of 40 minutes or 40 hours or 40 days.
Right.
And I think that is not being soft on immigration. I am far from soft on illegal immigration. That is being realistic about how you walk yourself back out of a situation that we took 40 years getting into.
But most people on immigration is a great example. Most people don't even understand that you have to have a repatriation treaty with another country. You can't just say, you're not supposed to be here. I'm now going to dump you in a random foreign country.
Yeah, they say they're from Guatemala, so we're taking them to Guatemala. And what if Guatemala says no?
Right. And some countries might not like us very much. Like, I don't know, what's the dictatorship down there? Venezuela.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like, send us back our people. I mean, no.
I guess we could. There are ways to figure it out, I suppose.
Right, but I mean, this is where it's sort of the knee jerk, like, oh, this is simple.
What is the Tren de Agua, the Mexican gang from Venezuela?
Oh yeah.
Like I don't think they want to take them back.
Yeah, they love them. They're just
we got to figure out how to
give us our gangs back.
23 after the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy for Grace Point Healthcare. I love talking about this organization. They are affordable, they are convenient, they are comprehensive medicine, and they are a direct pay primary care provider. Dr. Rob and his team are great, and they run a company that they like to say that it is modern medicine done the old-fashioned way. And when they say that, they really mean it. In as much as they don't get in the way of you and the relationship between you and the doctor, whether you're paying by the visit or enrolling in their Smart Care plan, you always know that you're getting exceptional care at an affordable price. Like, for example, the basic Smart Care plan is just $69 a month, including free office visits and free basic labs and diagnostics. At Grace Point, there's no long wait times in the waiting room. At Grace Point, they are your primary provider that treats the entire family from newborns to seniors. Winter brings cold and flu. Do you want to wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks or longer to go to your primary care provider? Or, like at Grace Point Healthcare, do you want to go the same day or the next day? And for most, you'll be seen the same day or next day. They even do house calls when you're feeling too bad to leave your home. Grace Point treats the whole body with comprehensive medical approach, so I invite you to be a part of the Grace Point family. Grace Point Healthcare, modern medicine, delivered the old-fashioned way. Call today for an appointment, 599-6868. That's 599-6868, located in the heart of Franklin.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
So casualties are reported after that small plane plowed into a warehouse full of workers in California. We've got updates on the New Orleans attack, Vegas Cybertruck bombing, and the day's closing money news at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mr. Ken Weaver. I'd like to thank all of you running over to my Twitter account. My X machine account is at Matt Murphy Show, at Matt Murphy Show. Many that I've not seen for quite some time are showing up to congratulate the Georgia Bulldogs on losing to Notre Dame. Thank you so much for being a part of the family. We appreciate you. Love me or hate me, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. No, I'm getting inundated with personal messages, direct messages, congratulating the Bulldogs. That's very nice.
I got those as well.
I bet you did.
The Crimson Tide.
You know, it is what it is.
Well, and I just reminded some of them politely that Alabama's season ended after Tennessee's season did. So
I don't think that exhibition game against Michigan counted. I don't think
it's fine.
I like the thinking there, though.
Yeah,
you know,
if you're gonna troll hard.
Yeah, Nick says it's still 23-10 with 2 minutes to go. Okay,
you're saying there's a chance.
Telling me there's a shot. Well, I do sincerely appreciate all of you for putting up with us today. I promise tomorrow will be better. That's all I can tell you. Sharon is on hold with us to talk about rhinos. Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Sharon, depending on, well, thank you for what? Oh.
Well, for the award you won and for getting this time slot, I'm so excited.
Oh, I am too. Thank you so much. Hey, Sharon, can you do me a quick favor?
Yeah.
I just looked at my clock, and Ken Weaver gets itchy, particularly at the 6:30 newscast, if I make him wait. Would you mind holding on for just a moment for me, and I'll get right to you?
Not at all.
Oh, you're so sweet. Sharon, we'll get directly to you momentarily, right after we talk to Ken Weaver over in the newsroom, who's delivering some headlines, and we'll get to all of you on the phones as well and on the Super Text line. It's The Murphy Show on Super Talk.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, tracking the potential for some Arctic air to arrive in Middle Tennessee. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Officials on the scene say one person killed, 15 injured from a small plane crashing into a warehouse full of workers in Fullerton, California this afternoon, happened about half a mile away from the airport. During an event inside the White House today, President Biden discussed the ongoing investigation into the terror attack in New Orleans.
Federal law enforcement and the intelligence community are actively investigating any foreign or domestic contacts and connection that could possibly be relevant to the attack. And so we're also continuing to investigate whether or not there's any connection between the New Orleans attack and the explosion in Las Vegas.
Well, Vegas Sheriff Kevin McCahill pointing out similarities like both suspects serving at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, though there's no indication they were there at the time or the same unit. And both suspects turning to the Apturo to rent the trucks they used. Money News, Dave Packer.
Wall Street stocks fell in 2025's first day of trading, stretching a 4-day losing streak into the new year. The Dow fell 152 points in Thursday's trading. The S&P 500 was down 13 points, and the Nasdaq dropped 30 points. Tesla shares lost 6.7% after the company revealed vehicle deliveries fell short of expectations in 2024. Apple has agreed to pay $95 million to settle a lawsuit accusing its virtual assistant Siri of recording conversations even when people were not using the app and sharing those recordings with advertisers. 2024's movie ticket sales fell more than 3% from 2023, according to estimates from ComScore, as theaters still try to bounce back to pre-pandemic levels. Data company Serum announced its annual ranking of airline performance, crowning Aeromexico as the world's most on-time airline with nearly 87% of flights on time in 2024.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Got a crash in Madison, Gallatin Pike South at East Palestine Avenue. And in Smyrna, right shoulder block there, 24 eastbound before Sam Ridley Parkway due to a crash off on the shoulder. Nolensville Pike and Haywood Lane. Police working a crash there. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did you know that it's stew season? It's soup season. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I'm told that January is officially soup and stew season. And if you're thinking about making a delicious crock pot, something or another, I would encourage you to go over to Savory Spice for your first stop in making said same. Now, they have the Spice and Easy line, which is pretty cool because they've got soups and stews and all kind of things with the Spice and Easy line of products, which makes it so easy to put it in the crock pot. They've got the directions right there on the back. They've got all the ingredients that you need to make the deliciousness right there on the back of the package. And off you go, and you can walk away from it for 6 hours or so. You come back, and you've got a delicious meal ready to go for you and your family. Or if you're more seasoned, pardon the pun, in your expertise in the kitchen, they have every spice and every seasoning available for you at their 2 locations. One's in L&L Market on Charlotte Pike in Nashville. The other in Franklin, just off the square, right next to Gray's Pharmacy. Go by and see the good people of Savory Spice. You'll be glad you did. I love that they're locally owned and operated. Call Holly and David. Tell them that I was talking good about them at Savory Spice. Stop by, and you may see me, Savory Spice.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back to the top stories of the day before we get back to Sharon. Sharon, hang in there. I'll get to you as promised. Matt Murphy and you, Cameron's been hanging out with us throughout the course of the day. By the way, an official invitation from Chris Webber and Matt Murphy to all of you Tennessee Volunteer fans who listen to us. If y'all want to watch the semifinals of the national championship game together, we're down for it, I guess. Because we'll be sitting at home like everybody else.
You speak for yourself. I'm not watching another second.
Foosball is dead.
It's dead to me until September of next year. This year, right?
I wish I knew if we had hope at quarterback, but
kind of hard to say.
Kind of hard to say. Dogs got beat. I think it was 23-10. I suppose couldn't find the end zone. It's you know what? I'll say this, and that's all I'll say. Because I know some of you are like, you're talking about too much football. It's a bit of a tough ask for your first start to be in a national championship playoff game.
That's a
tough ask.
Yeah, no doubt.
But, there's big times ahead. So there you go. Not for you, Bama fans. Thank you very much.
We're not welcome.
No. Yeah, well, I don't know what I said to make it not welcome, but I'm glad I said it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've reached the time of football is winding down, but come on, guys. Football is part of life down here. So we talk politics and all these other things, but if you don't at least acknowledge important football, then are you alive?
I'm kind of glad I was doing a radio show during that crappy game.
But if we were at home sitting in front of our TVs, the outcome may have been different.
It's butterfly effect.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
Probably. That's a good point.
You weren't sufficiently dedicated.
That's right. It's our fault.
If we had called in today, Georgia would have won.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question. Also, if the poor kid that got the 15-yard penalty, y'all don't blame that poor kid.
No, not at all.
They were showing him at the end of the game. I was looking in the corner of my eye, and they were showing him at the end of the game. I'm like, come on, y'all. Don't do that.
This is why I'm going to tune in C-SPAN for the speaker's vote tomorrow.
I will do that,
If I don't do that, then it could go poorly. We could have 17 rounds.
Okay, Sharon has a conversation to be had about the term rhino. And Sharon, I am here for the conversation.
Yes, I've been listening to it. It's pretty good, pretty interesting.
All right. Well, let's talk.
Okay, so I've been seeing that and using that term for many years. I mean, probably 15. Well, what I notice is, since I'm in a lot of political groups and on pages that I follow on Facebook, and I follow a lot of people on Twitter too, but I noticed that still to this day, a lot of people spell it RHINO, which is the animal.
It is.
So they really don't understand what the term RINO really means. I think they really don't understand. I think they do. They think, well, you're not conservative, so you're a rhino. No matter whether they're a libertarian or Democrat, whatever, they just call them that. You're right. They just kind of slap that name on it. But I do try to correct people and say it's RINO, Republican in name only, which is a whole nother animal, maybe a sewer rat.
A sewer rat. We'll just call them sewer rats. Swamp rats.
Call them sewer rats because they are too liberal, way too liberal.
So tell me somebody. Who is somebody? Like, give me a name that, like, people would recognize. Who's a swamp rat?
Oh, yeah. What's her face? No, I can't think right now.
Liz Cheney?
Liz Cheney. Oh, my gosh.
She got her hiney handed to her.
Democrat.
But she's not in Congress anymore.
No, but I'm talking about over the years. I've just, it doesn't matter if she's in Congress. She was in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we're talking about right now, there's many that are still rhinos or sewer rats.
Sharon, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was going to tell you a quick story, and it goes right to the heart of what you're saying.
Okay.
I was living in Birmingham at the time that I got to know a congressman from down there named Gary Palmer. And I appreciated Gary because Gary was a conservative guy. And Gary didn't like Washington, D.C. at all and had no interest going up. He's still serving as a representative, but he didn't run until he was, in his 50s, I guess? Yeah. And Gary would regularly come on my show in Birmingham, and I would regularly yell at him about what they weren't doing in Washington, D.C. And Gary, and we would get into these pretty heated arguments about what they weren't doing that I considered to be conservative enough in Washington, D.C. And finally, Gary was a little exacerbated with me, and he said, Matt, your problem is you think just because there's a lot of Republicans in Washington, D.C., that means there's a lot of conservatives. And you've got to get that out of your mind. Mm-hmm. So I think I say that to say, I think I might be more comfortable with the term if you called it conservative in name only.
Chino.
A Chino.
Yeah, because a lot of...
It's better than Kino, I think.
A lot of them, say they're conservative, but then they don't vote conservative. They don't. They vote on these big spending bills. They come out, they help these big spending bills. They're definitely not fiscally conservative. And some people are not conservative at all. And, is the Republican Party supposed to be conservative? Well, I think so, at least more than they are now.
Well, here's my thing on it, and this kind of I don't want to talk the thing to death. I think we might have already done it, but beating a dead horse is more fun than you think. So it's not my club. It's not your club.
Right.
It's their club, right? And so when people declare that other people, I'm not letting them in. I'm not letting them run as Republicans. The Republican Party's letting them run as Republicans. So you need to go. I mean, you need to start another club.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say, is that some of these people who really don't understand what rhino means, they'll just slap that name on anybody, whether they're libertarian or independent or whatever. I think they just don't know. I think it's just some ignorance that they don't realize that rhino means Republican in name only. They just think it means not conservative.
Well, here's where you're singing from the Matt Murphy hymn book right now, Sharon, and here's why.
Okay.
Do you know how often I get accused of being a rhino?
Oh, probably way too much.
A bunch. Do you know how many times I've claimed to be a Republican?
None.
Zero. So how
I
can
know you're a libertarian.
How can I be a Republican in name only if I've never claimed to be a Republican?
Exactly. I get it.
Because reasons.
So I laugh when I hear people call you that.
Oh, well. Now, Cameron, he's a rhino.
But RHINO with the horn.
Yeah, he's with the big and the big. He's less of a rhino than he used to be. Sharon, thank you for calling.
All right. You have a great day.
Call anytime. You have a good day, too. So I want to circle back to the big stories of the day. Circle back and kind of finish up in the final moments that we have. Because I'm a little concerned for 2025. Today is the first day that we've been on air in 2025. And I'm frankly concerned about where we are from an intelligence community standpoint. I'm concerned not necessarily about getting to the bottom of what happened in New Orleans. I think we're pretty clear that this guy radicalized himself, found a home with ISIS and embraced it very quickly and decided he was going to kill as many people as he possibly could and brought some cooler bombs. And I mean, he was doing these odd things where he apparently set those out early. And I don't know what, I guess he was going to shoot them or explode them.
I don't know the details, but yes, there were trying to kill other people too.
The suggestion was, or has been made by the FBI today, that he was alone in his efforts, that he was not working with anybody else. Are you comfortable in that assessment?
No.
Me either.
I'm just not. And the problem is, unless we have a gigantic surveillance state with everybody rifling through our emails and cell phones and stuff like that before we've ever committed a crime, then stopping people who haven't committed crimes is going to be real tough. Real tough.
Well, it's similar in nature to shooting situations, like mass shooting situations.
Yes.
Let's say school shooting situations, right? So someone says something, I mean, in America, and I don't mean to overcomplicate it. I think it's pretty simple. We live in a country where we give free people, the benefit of the doubt, so long as they have not committed crimes against others in terms of their ability to speak. And so if someone says something untoward, I won't say it, I won't repeat it on the air, but if someone says something about a school and the police go and investigate them and they don't find that they're violating any laws that they have said, I mean, I guess at some point you could charge them with making a terroristic threat, but outside of that.
But if they never publish it, like that's the thing. Like all these shooters with manifestos, terrorists, other folks, I can write down in my private diary how much I hate so-and-so and want to kill them and all the awful things I want to do. And you know
that's
what?
legal.
That's legal. I can do that because I'm not issuing a threat or doing anything to anyone else. It's just the privacy of my own home.
And I don't think you want to live in a country where that's not legal.
I agree with you.
Because what that involves and what you're talking about is, I mean, I understand the concept of seeing something, saying something. And if you see something and say something and that leads the authorities to find someone before they commit a violent act and they were going to do so, then that's great. But the danger in doing that is that you authorize the police. Are we willing as a society, as you pointed out, to authorize the police to, on the word of someone else, start going through my home computer?
Yeah.
And seeing what I'm doing on my home computer, seeing what internet searches I've made. Are y'all willing to live in that country? Because I think that's a dangerous country to live in. That's like North Korea, China.
It gets there real fast.
It
and
does,
they say, well, we're not, the good people are fine. We're just surveilling to, stop the criminals. Well, the problem is good people and criminals aren't any different before a crime's committed.
Well, and I used this. I remember this. Remember Jim Fife?
Mm-hmm.
The late, great Jim Fife, pardon me for bringing up a football relationship, but the late, great Jim Fife was the voice of the Auburn Tigers. And I worked in Montgomery, Alabama back in the olden times, kid, 19 and 99. And Jim and I somehow got into this argument where I said the scenario was that there were police officers that were on a street and they were looking for somebody and they knocked on somebody's door and they wanted to look through those people's houses. And the person said no. And Jim's like, well, why wouldn't you let somebody look through your house if you got nothing to hide? I was like, because it's my house.
Right.
You got to come back with a warrant, man. You can't just look through my house. And he goes, well, if you have nothing to hide, I don't understand why a law-abiding citizen wouldn't want to do that. And I'm not trying to speak ill of Jim. Jim has since passed on. The point is if you value liberty and freedom, then you have to value the right of somebody to say no.
Yes. And that's and people say, well, you're interfering with law enforcement. No, you're not. You have liberties that matter and that are protected by the Constitution of the United States of America, and that's got to mean something. Yeah, I'm telling you, folks, the equipment that they have now, the capacity that law enforcement has now to surveil public spaces is amazing. They can rifle through images of everybody. They can find all this stuff. But you know what? Until somebody commits a crime, being in certain places, that's not enough.
Right. After the fact, and I've talked about some of the technology that I've seen with my own eyes in this community. There are companies that have technologies that they can set up surveillance points, like, for example, at a fair.
Yeah.
And they can go back over the 5 days of a county fair. And I had someone demonstrate this. He said, tell me like a basic description of somebody. And I was like, 10-year-old little boy. And he said, tell me what color shirt they're wearing. I said, blue. I said, okay. And he typed in 8 to 12-year-old blue shirt. And instantaneously, and this was from an actual county fair. This is not a simulation. He popped up like 20 photos from entry points and exit points of that kid, of a kid in a blue shirt, and some of them were misses, but you can quite easily see where the technology is to the point where I, get a little itchy over the amount of civil liberties we have in public spaces anymore.
Yeah, you go down on Broadway,
you're being surveilled.
You're being surveilled. Like, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in that space on Broadway when you're going down the street, but just know that there's plenty of cameras there that can observe you.
Well, and you add to this concept the idea that most of us have that the FBI is either a failure right now or is a corrupted organization right now. And I'm just setting up for a very dangerous 2025.
Well, I think I'll put a finer point on it. I think people are just weird. And I think we have lost it and we've been digitized and we just don't have the feelings of, hey, there's something deeply wrong running a truck through Bourbon Street.
I mean, looking at that dude in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what point are we making that we don't like Elon Musk or Donald Trump? It's very odd. 52 after the hour on Super Talk. USS stands for United Structural Systems. They deal in foundation repair, waterproofing, and concrete leveling of your home. Anything home-related that has to do with your foundation, and waterproofing and foundation repair go hand in hand, right? Because if you have water issues, the odds are if you don't handle it, you're going to have foundation issues. Secondarily, if you have foundation issues, the chances are you could have water issues at some point down the road as well. What are the symptoms? Well, if you notice gaps or bricks cracking, walls bowing, doors or windows sticking, drywall separating, these are all examples of the possibility of your house foundation having issues with it. Waterproofing issues, standing water, obviously, in crawl spaces, musty odors, or even floor joists that are damp or have wood rot to them. You need to handle these things. And USS stands for United Structural Systems. United Structural Systems can handle this. Let's give them a call today at 615-488-7855, 488-7855. They've been keeping homes stable and dry since 1994, and they have over 25,000 satisfied residential customers to prove it. We want you to call USS because homeowners trust USS. USSTN.com or 615-488-7855.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Jason writes in and says, I would like Cameron to run for Congress. I have it on good authority that Cameron has thought about that. It's 57 after the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy. And thank you for spending the day with me today.
No problem, man. It was fun.
I needed you today. Normally, it's just yours truly, no Cameron Smith, for the to the delight and chagrin of
it depends on who you're talking to.
But I needed Cameron for my emotional support animal as the Georgia Bulldogs were playing today against Notre Dame. They lost. 23 to 10. So
well, and because Jason asked so nicely, at some point I think I probably need to run for office because I'm a cave person. I'm a cave rhino actually, and it's a rare breed.
I read that first one just so I could read his second message.
Is it appropriate?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Dear Diary, I love Mitt Romney. I would love to bleep on his nipples. I don't know why I bleeped the bleep word. I don't know.
It's better that way.
I would love to bleep on his nipples. I just read that from Cameron's diary and said that's what Jason said.
Of course. Thank you, Jason. I love you too.
We're done, right? We're not currently on the air. Is that correct?
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait.
Awkward.
That is kind of awkward. I believe here Ray says I believe in license plate readers. So this is what. I mean, there's always been...
I believe in them, too. They exist.
There's always been a place where civil liberties and the ability that we have to empower our law enforcement officers to surveil in order to protect and to serve, where that meets. Mm-hmm. And I get that. And there's always going to be a rub and a robust conversation about how much we should give to our law enforcement authorities in terms of handing over our ability to exist without surveillance.
Yeah. And if you want to surveil that big old A on the front of my truck, you go right ahead.
A stands for...
awesome. Alabama. Roll Tide.
Ew. That's just an awful way to begin the year. Thank you for listening. For Chris Weber, for Ken Weaver, not so much for Cameron Smith, but for Matt Murphy. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Until then, have a wonderful evening, folks. So long, everybody.